Muy buenos días a todos. Queremos darles
Good
la más
morning.
cordial bienvenida al
Please
Día
be
del
welcome
Inversionista de
today
Colbún
to the
en
Day
su
of the
versión
Investors
2023.
on
Este año de
this
manera
year,
híbrida.
2023.
Mi nombre es Francisca Silva,
My
jefe
name
de
is
comunicaciones
Francisca Silva,
corporativas,
Chief
y
of
esta mañana
Corporate
los estaré
Communications,
acompañando
and
en la
today I'm
presentación de
going
esta
to be
jornada.
with you
Les
during
recordamos
this
que esta
journey.
presentación se
Remember,
realizará de
this
manera simultánea
presentation will
en
be
español y en inglés,
simultaneously done
por
in
lo que invitamos
Spanish
a las
and
personas
English.
conectadas por
So
streaming
please
a
remember,
sintonizar
if
el
you are
canal
on a
con el
streaming, you
idioma
can
que más
use
les acomode.
the right
Al lado
channel
derecho
for
de su
you.
pantalla
On the right
encontrarán los
side,
accesos
on the
a ambos
screen, you
canales.
can see the access to
Para
both
comenzar, los
channels.
invitamos a ver
In
el
order
breve
to
video
start,
de
we
seguridad
will
de
have
este
a
recinto.
video, safety video of this premises, Metropolitan Santiago. For anyone to enjoy an experience that is safe, we invite you to follow the following recommendations. Arrive in time so that you learn about the access, keep communicated with your people, and find what the meeting points are. Find all the safety areas in these premises. Remember not to hinder all the exits. Respect all the restricted areas. In case of any emergencies, please remain calm at all moments. Find the safety personnel and follow the instructions of the safety people. Help other people to evacuate the premises. For any emergency, get in contact with the ambulance, police, and fire department. During evacuation, remain in the areas of safety until you receive new instructions. Metropolitan Santiago and HC Solutions remind you safety is a value. For having a good journey, enjoy the event, and remain safe.
Con este encuentro buscamos
With
crear
this
una
meeting,
instancia de
we
información
want
para
to
ustedes,
have an
nuestros
information
principales
area,
inversionistas,
our main
donde de primera
investors,
fuente pueden
where
conocer
we are
cómo
going
hemos
to find
avanzado en la
how we have
implementación de nuestro nuevo
progressed in the
propósito y nuestra
implementation
agenda estratégica,
of our new
los
purposes,
planes que hemos trazado para
the
hacer frente a los
plans that we
desafíos del
have
sector eléctrico
for
y
facing
cómo los hemos ido
our area
enfrentando.
and how we have
Durante
been
este año en
facing all
Colbún
this.
actualizamos nuestro
During this
propósito.
year, we
En este
updated our
proceso participamos
purposes.
más de
In
800
this
trabajadores
purpose, we have
y también
more than
representantes de
800
distintos
workers
grupos de
and
interés.
representatives
El resultado
of
de este
different
trabajo
areas,
se
and
resume
the
en tres grandes
results
palabras:
are
transforma,
summarized like
impulsa
this:
y
transformation,
sueña.
boosting,
A
and
continuación,
dreaming.
veremos un video
Next,
que refleja
we'll
la
have a
esencia
video
de nuestro propósito.
showing the essence of our purpose.
En el universo, la energía siempre ha sido mucho más que una simple fuerza física. Ha sido parte esencial para generar la vida en nuestro planeta, siendo el poderoso motor que nos impulsa hacia el futuro. En Colbún, nuestros orígenes se remontan a la transformación de la fuerza del agua en energía eléctrica. Ahora, además, estamos transformando energía a través del sol y el viento, contribuyendo al desarrollo humano en equilibrio con la naturaleza, sin olvidar que hoy, mientras avanzamos en esta transición energética, nuestros clientes y toda la sociedad necesitan un suministro seguro, continuo y competitivo. Hoy nos encontramos en un camino lleno de posibilidades, donde la energía es la fuerza que transforma nuestros sueños en proyectos y nuestros proyectos en progreso para todos. Es así como le damos sentido a nuestro propósito, porque transformamos energía cuando reconocemos nuestros errores, tomando conciencia de que somos parte de una industria que tiene impactos y nos esforzamos por mitigarlos. Transformamos energía cuando dejamos una huella positiva en cada paso que damos, cuando buscamos la excelencia y promovemos un liderazgo responsable que integra nuestro entorno. También transformamos energía cuando nos desafiamos a pensar de manera innovadora, inyectando pasión a todo lo que hacemos, buscando ir un paso más allá. Queremos transformar energía al convertirnos en socios de nuestros clientes, haciendo nuestros sus desafíos e impulsando sus sueños y proyectos. Transformamos energía cuando nuestros proveedores crecen junto a nosotros, al buscar ser transparentes con las comunidades donde invertimos y cuando creamos valor para nuestros accionistas. También transformamos energía cuando fomentamos la colaboración y el respeto mutuo, poniendo en el centro a las personas y promoviendo su desarrollo. Porque nuestro corazón está latiendo fuerte, sigamos sumando oportunidades para todos quienes nos rodean y vivamos el propósito que juntos construimos. En Colbún transformamos la energía en equilibrio con el planeta para impulsar tus proyectos y sueños. Colbún transforma, impulsa, sueña.
Como parte de nuestro propósito,
As
en
part of
Colbún
our
buscamos
purpose
estar en
in
equilibrio con el
Colbún,
planeta.
we try to
Nos hemos
find
trazado la meta
an
corporativa
equilibrium with the
de
planet.
reducir nuestra
We
huella
have
de
a
carbono
corporate
en un
goal to
30%
reduce
a
our
2025
carbon
y en un
footprint
40%
in
a
30%
2030.
and
Además del compromiso de
40%.
ser carbono neutral a 2050. En esta línea, el evento de hoy será carbono neutral. Para ello, les pedimos que por favor contesten la encuesta a la cual pueden acceder a través del QR expuesto en pantalla, así como también al costado de nuestros pendones. De esta manera, podremos saber cuánto emitirá cada uno de ustedes al ir y venir a este evento, cuantificar la huella de carbono y compensarla con nuestros bonos, logrando así ser un evento carbono neutral. La agenda de hoy constará
The
de
agenda
dos
of today
grandes temas.
will have
Luego
two
de las
main
palabras de
areas.
bienvenida de Hernán
After the
Rodríguez,
welcome works of
presidente del
Hernán
directorio de Colbún,
Rodriguez,
estos temas son situación del mercado eléctrico y
so this
nuestra
is the
estrategia
scenario
2030.
of our
Al
strategy
final
for
de cada una de las
2030.
presentaciones,
At the
tendremos un
end,
espacio
we
para
will
sus
have
preguntas.
some room for your questions and
Sin más
answers.
preámbulos, invito a pasar
So
adelante
we are
a
going
Hernán
to
Rodríguez,
invite Hernán
presidente del
Rodriguez,
directorio de Colbún,
President of the
quien
Board of
dirigirá unas
Colbún,
palabras
who will
introductorias para dar
address
inicio
some
formalmente
words
a este
to
encuentro.
start
Gracias.
this agenda.
Buenos días a todos los que están acá presentes.
Good morning.
y los que están conectados
Good morning,
en simultáneo.
everyone, and those who are on
En nombre de
streaming.
Colbún,
On behalf of
del directorio
Colbún
que presido, les quiero dar la cordial
and our
bienvenida
board,
a esta
please be
versión
welcome
del Día del
to
Inversionista de
this
Colbún,
version
un espacio
of
donde queremos
Investors
compartir con
Days.
ustedes
And
nuestra
here we want to
visión de la
share with
evolución
you
que esperamos
our
para los
vision
próximos
and the
años del
evolution
mercado
for the next
eléctrico
few
y
years
sus consecuentes desafíos
and
tecnológicos
the
y
challenges
regulatorios.
in terms of technology and
Vamos a también a
legislation.
mostrarles una actualización
We're
de
going
nuestra
to
agenda
show you
estratégica
an update of our
y
agenda
hablar de lo que creemos será la
and
evolución
talk
de
about
nuestra
what we think
empresa en
will
los
be the
próximos años.
evolution of our company.
Esta visión de
This
futuro
vision
es una que está
in the
marcada por
future
grandes
is something
desafíos
that is
que
marked by
cruzan
some
la industria
challenges
de la energía a
along
nivel
all
global.
the energy industry.
En el último libro de David
During the
Jorgen,
last
The New Map,
book written by
Energy,
David
Climate and
Newmap,
the Clash of
Energy
Nations,
and the Clash of Nature,
considerado como un experto en energía
it is
más
he is
influyente de
an
Estados
expert
Unidos,
on
escribió hace
energy
un par
in
de
the
años lo
United
siguiente:
States. He wrote a couple of
a
years
estas
ago,
alturas, el
at this
qué
time,
ha quedado claro en términos de
it's
transición
clear
energética.
in terms of energy transition
Emisiones netas de carbono
that the
cero.
emissions of
Pero lo que
zero
sigue siendo
carbon,
incierto es el
but what is
cómo.
uncertain is
Cómo
how
llegar
we're
a la
going to
carbono
do it,
neutralidad
how
en
we
una
can get
economía
this
global
carbon
que
neutrality
actualmente
in this
depende de
economy
combustibles fósiles
that
para
today
el
it depends on
80% de la energía
fossil
consumida.
fuel.
Esa es la gran pregunta que
And that is
estará
the
en la
big
agenda
question
global
that
en
we
los
will
próximos
have in the
años.
global agenda for the next few
La
years.
cita de Jorgen nos permite,
This
nos remite a algo que en
book
Colbún hemos procurado
tells us that
transmitir en
something in
distintos
Colbún we
foros
have
e
tried to
instancias.
show in
La
different
transición
areas as
energética es un
instances.
fenómeno
Energy transition
irreversible,
is
pero bajo su
something that will
implementación
happen.
exitosa no existen balas
And
de
to be
plata.
successful, We don't have silver bullets. We need an energy transition that is responsible. In Chile, obviously, we have all these challenges in terms of transformation. The scenario of our area has changed during the last decades. Now, let's see some figures. By the end of the 90s, Chile had only 4 or 5 stakeholders in this industry, and today we have more than 150 companies, from small entrepreneurs up to big companies, multinational companies. Second, the offer of power has changed. By the late 80s, the power generation in Chile was mostly hydraulic power with charcoal emissions, and in the 90s, Chile started to use natural gas from Argentina. However, in 2007, Argentina cut the supply of gas, and this, with the deep drought we lived at that time, and we still have it with the last few years, led to a quick installation of diesel power plants and other coal power plants. And also in the northern area of Chile, we started to have new facilities due to the cut of the gas supply and the drought and difficulties to start new projects, and the value of the fuels led that between 2009 and 2013, the spot prices were very high during this period. By the late decades, there was an inclusion of wind and solar energy, and in 2014, less than 2% of our metrics came from solar and wind energy. In 2023, this was 35%, and hydroelectricity added, this is about 55%. If you look at this, Chile has a successful history in this area. In fact, today, the installed capacity of energy is more than 33,000 megawatts, and it's 7,500 for hydraulic energy, 4.7 wind energy, and 11.7 thermal energy. And on demand, we can see some relevant changes. While the demand of energy had a peak of 2,000 megawatts in the 90s, today it exceeds 5 times that value. Additionally, for the last 5 years, we have seen an inclusion of free customers hiring directly the generators and not through a distribution company. As we can see, the power market had an evolution with crises and different challenges, including climate change, inclusion of new technologies. In Colbún, we are aware of this. Remember that we had complex periods. However, I can say that our company has achieved and be consolidated a proper handling of the short-term risks, and to have a roadmap to have good results in the economic area, a solid financial position, and to have a clear vision of the challenges in terms of energy transition, as we have a portfolio of assets that is very diversified, and with the proper management of the risks in the business has been an incident in these results. But the challenges that we have are relevant in the future. The intermittence of solar energy and wind energy, the abundance of renewable sources during the day and scarcity during night, the bottleneck of the power transmission that is global, not only in Chile, or how we develop storage efficient systems. These are parts of the challenges that we have that will require important quota of innovation to solve these problems, technology, but also legislation, management of the business, and with the community. So we need to have a debate to find solutions to these complex problems, and we believe it is important to avoid simplification or short roads that are not proper for assessing the risks of each of the proposals or aim to divide the world of our business. The challenges that we are facing in this area and how Colbún we are managing, this is something that we are going to address during the first part of this meeting. Here, remember what the challenges are. These are global, and for every country we are facing similar problems, as I said before. As we have more penetration of renewable energies in this framework, Chile is far from being the exception. Let us take the example of an article of a magazine, that is Economist. In September last year, published an article named "The Renewable Energies with Hidden Costs." It says, the lack of capacity in the network to transport energy to the south from the north means that the manager of the network pays to shut off the wind turbines of Scotland and the gas plants in England turn on. To take advantage of these opportunities in Colbún, we started to implement an agenda that has led all these steps for this new decade. This was updated by the company with a high participation of all the management and the board of directors, and will be addressed in the second part of this agenda. Here, I would like to highlight the 7 pillars of the agenda aligned with our purpose. As we could see in the video, we are here to transform energy into equilibria for the planet and also boosting new projects and dreams. This purpose also, as we said, was developed by the whole company with our participation in Chile and Peru, and it was an exercise that was really enriching for all of us. In my opinion, what's most valuable in this agenda is that we identified opportunities of business according to the needs of our energy transition, with a better management of our assets and growth in renewable energies, energy solutions that are more available for our customers, inclusion and other desalination and transportation of water, and finally, search of opportunities in other areas. As you can see, this description shows that it is possible to align the management of the business in order to decarbonize the planet. It doesn't mean we should be responsible for this, trying to balance all the aspects of energy supply, environment, and also the costs for the users and the country, and the safety and continuity of power distribution. The third part of this agenda, our manager, José Ignacio Escobar, will address the perspectives for the 2030, delivering some metrics on how we expect Colbún evolves for the next few years in order to become a more resilient company with a diversified portfolio, taking advantage of the growth opportunity in this energy transition. On behalf of Colbún, thanks for your presence here and the interest to follow our company. We hope this is going to be an opportunity for you to learn about the roadmap we have as Colbún and the new stage of growth. And also, we are going to clarify all your doubts and exchange opinions on something that is quite significant for the development of the countries. Thank you.
Agradecemos las palabras de Hernán Rodríguez,
Thanks,
presidente de
Hernan
nuestro
Rodriguez,
directorio.
President of our
A
Board of
continuación,
Directors. And
comenzaremos con las
next,
presentaciones
we will
de los
start with the
expositores. Les
presentations.
recordamos que al finalizar
Remember
cada
that at the
presentación
end
habrá
of
un
each
espacio para sus
presentation, you will
preguntas.
have some room for
Invitamos a pasar
questions and
adelante, por
answers.
favor, a Juan
Please,
Eduardo Vázquez,
the floor
gerente
is
de energía,
yours.
quien
Juan Eduardo
expondrá sobre los
Vázquez,
principales
Manager of
desafíos que
Energy,
el mercado
addressing the
eléctrico ha
main
enfrentado
challenges
este
of
año. Y
electric
también a Paulina Basualdo,
area,
gerente
and
de
Paulina
regulación, quien
Basualdo,
se referirá a las principales
Legislation
novedades regulatorias
Manager,
que
regarding the
impactan a
new
nuestra industria.
legislation impacting our industry.
Muy buenos días.
Good morning.
Es un agrado estar nuevamente con usted una
It's a
año más.
pleasure to be here with
¿Cuáles han
you
sido
to
los
share
principales desafíos que hemos
the
abordado
main
durante este
challenges we have
2023
addressed
y cómo nos
during
estamos preparando, sobre
2023
todo,
and
para los
how we are
desafíos que se vienen
facing
a futuro?
the new
Ya
challenges
gran parte de
ahead.
los mensajes, ¿cierto?,
Most of the
nos ha dado
messages
Hernán. Yo creo que
provided
tenemos
by
como
Hernan,
industria
I think
eléctrica grandes
as
desafíos que son, y no
power
solo desde
area,
los
we have a
beneficios
lot of
chilenos, sino
challenges, not
también
only
desde
in
el
our
mercado
area,
eléctrico
but also
internacional.
in the electric
Lo primero,
international
¿cierto?, es
markets.
que una mirada
First,
de
we
lo que ha
have
sido la
a view
condición de
of the
abastecimiento y
conditions
rostro
in
del
terms
sistema
of
eléctrico nacional.
supply of
Nos
our
permite
system
concluir,
today.
¿cierto?, de que
This
hemos
allows
vivido
us
un
to
año muy
say that we
particular.
have lived a
Es un
very
año en que en el
specific
primer
year,
semestre del
where during the
2023
first semester
tuvimos una condición
2023,
como país,
we had a
una
special
condición hidrológica
condition
extremadamente seca.
that was
Y la
extremely
segunda
dry.
mitad del año
And in
fue
the
una
second
condición
part
hidrológica
of the year,
extremadamente
it
húmeda.
was very humid.
Eso tuvimos que abordarlo
And
en
with
forma
that, we had
equilibrada.
to address
¿Eso
it
qué significó?
with
Significó,
equilibria.
¿cierto?,
And
que
that means
durante el primer
that
semestre del
during the
año
first
2023,
semester
el aporte
2023,
de la energía
the
hidroeléctrica
contribution of
global en Chile
hydroelectrical energy
era del orden
in
de
the
los
whole
30
country was about
gigawatts diario, de un
13
consumo que está
gigawatts
entre
per
los
day,
220 y los
and with a
240,
consumption
como se
that is
estima
between
actualmente.
220 and 40.
De unos 240.
So
Y en el segundo semestre,
in the
los
second
30
semester,
gigawatts se
those
triplicaron.
30
Eso quiere
were
decir
more
que
than that, and that means
de la
we had
naturaleza
from the
de las
nature,
centrales hidroeléctricas
from
alrededor
the
de los 8 ciclos
our
combinados.
area, we have
Y eso
8
apareció
combined
espontáneamente casi
cycles,
entre
and this
junio
was
y agosto
spontaneous
de este
between
año.
June and
Y
August
hubo que
this year.
gestionar toda esa
We had to
actividad.
manage all
Si
this activity.
observamos las cifras,
And if we
¿cierto?,
can
del
see the
año
figures
2023
of the year
en términos anuales,
2023,
hubo un
in
incremento
yearly
sustancial
terms, we can
respecto
see there
a lo que
was an
tuvimos el año
increase
anterior, alrededor del
compared with last
13%.
year.
En
That
promedio
was about
tuvimos un
13%.
incremento del orden
As an
del
average, we
20%.
had an
Y
increase
para
of
encontrar un año
20%.
tan
And
favorable
to
como el que
find
hemos vivido
a
en febrero
favorable year
del
like this
2023, tenemos que
in
retroceder
2023, we
17
have to
años para
go
encontrar
back
un año con mayor
17 years
producción
to find
hidroeléctrica.
something
Por lo tanto,
similar.
ese ha sido un
So
elemento con el que hemos
this
convivido
is
y hemos trabajado con
something we have
soporte.
lived
Yo
with
creo que lo hemos
and we have been
abordado
working with.
adecuadamente.
We have
¿Qué
addressed
estamos
this
viendo
properly.
actualmente? Hoy en
Currently, we
noviembre,
can
¿cierto?,
see
todavía
that in
observamos en nuestra
November,
cordillera
we
que nos
still
queda
can
algo de
see
nieve.
in our
Hemos
cordillera, we still
constatado que en el
have
mes de
some
noviembre tuvimos
snow, and in
temperaturas
November,
muy
we have
bajas.
temperatures
Y eso nos
that
ha
are
llevado, ¿cierto?, a
very
que
low,
tengamos
and
stock
this
de agua
led
en
us
la
to have a
cordillera,
stock of
pero
water,
también tenemos en nuestros
and
embalses
also in our
hasta máximo. Es
dams,
decir, tenemos desde el punto
the
de vista
maximum
sanitario
capacity. So
energético
from the
un nivel
point
de
of view of
seguridad
supply,
bastante
we
alto.
have a safety
¿Qué
level
teníamos el
that
año
is very
pasado a esta
high.
altura? Casi
Last
lloviendo en
year,
la cordillera.
there was
Y
almost
esto es
no
comparable
snow,
a lo que
and
había
this
en
is
el año
comparable
2006,
what we
que fue
had
el
in
último año también
2006,
muy
the
lluvioso.
last year
Por lo tanto, la
that was
expectativa
very
para
rainy.
cerrar este
So
año
the
2023 yo creo que
expectations
puede ser
to
el
close
comienzo del
this year
próximo año
and the
de
beginning of the
observar
next,
desde el punto de vista
we
de
can see
oferta
from the point of
hidroeléctrica
view of
un
the
mundo favorable.
supply, we have a
Si
favorable
observamos ahora la
scenario.
condición
If we can see now the conditions individually
lo que
of
ocurrió
Colbún,
durante el año
what happened during
2023, se puede constatar
2023,
también aquí que tenemos dos
you can see here we have
secciones, ¿cierto?, en el tiempo.
two
La primera muy
areas,
seca y la
one
segunda muy
that is
abundante.
dry
Y la
and the
curva
second
azul
humid,
representa el
and the blue
promedio
curve is
de
the
producción
average
real, ¿cierto?, de Colbún.
of actual
Teníamos un
production
aporte
of
del orden de
Colbún.
unos 10 gigawatts diarios,
We have a supply of
que es lo
10
que
gigawatts per day.
nosotros
That
tenemos
is
con nuestras centrales
what
cuando
we
estamos
have
mínimo,
with our
y
plants
triplicamos
as
esta
a
cifra,
minimum, and
llegando a un valor
it was
cercano a
3
los 30
times
gigawatts
more,
diarios durante el
close to
segundo semestre.
30
Eso ha
gigawatts per
favorecido
day.
bastante, ¿cierto?, nuestra
This
producción y nos
favors
ha
obviously
facilitado
our production, facilitating
entregar a nuestros clientes la energía casi
the provision of energy to our
solo con
customers
recursos
only
renovables.
with renewable resources.
Si observamos en términos anuales,
If we can
¿cierto?,
see
la
per
producción
year
total de
the
energía
full
aportada por
production
las
of
hidroeléctricas es
energy
del orden de los
in general, it's about 10 terawatts, and Colbún sells about 11. So it's a significant part, about 60% that we have with hydroelectrical energy. And the challenges that we have for this year are related to what we said about hydrology. It was abundant in terms of hydrology in the areas of Biobío, Laja, and Maule, and mostly this because also we had in Aconcagua, and we had to challenge several components in order to properly manage these operations. First, the discharges of the dams have to be properly managed because the amount of energy exceeded the forecast. In fact, we had to improve the procedures in order to identify how much is the energy that we will have in the future with these concentrations of water that actually will be frequent in the future. This will compel us to be more careful with the communities we're working with and to be in contact with the local authorities in our management, between the national authorities and our administration. It is necessary because what we lived actually was a difference in history. We have more than 6,000 cubic meters per second, and we try to avoid the exceeding 3,000 cubic meters downstreams because the infrastructure downstreams is within that limit. With a lot of effort, we could do it. Second has to do with our maintenance of our power plants. What are we doing? Taking advantage of this with a high hydrology, we are executing maintenance maintenance programs in Nehuenco, doing maintenance in all the areas of engineer and maintenance and generation of power with outsources, so that we are going to have 4 times more production to be more flexible. We will go from 1 batch per week and 1 per day. That is about 200 batches per year, because we are being adapted to the new times with a high operation with renewable energies. We are also doing maintenance on unit number 2. That is now under maintenance in order to get the main objective to be more flexible. In Santa Maria, we are changing the rotors and also having some better technology to reduce the problems of our equipment. This is a big challenge, to live with a new technology of renewable energies, and also thinking about the availability. We have as an average 90% of availability, and that means we have complying with the international standard. Hydroelectrical are 94%, and thermal power plant is nearly 90%. This is a clear objective, and we are improving this, especially for the last few years. Regarding raw materials, fuels, natural gas, we have 3 sources of gas natural international contracts. This is during the first semester we used this fuel. We have buying gas from Argentina, 5 years working with this with a proper supply. We are increasing the amount available. In fact, we have supply during the winter time, and this provides a better supply from Argentina. What's relevant is to improve economic relationships, because we have a lot of competitiveness. Argentina has to learn and recognize that they have to compete against LNG, but also against renewable energies with a better cost, against the hydroelectrical supply, and our world is more dynamic than what we could see a couple of years ago. We have more alternatives. And finally, we have the spot market of gas with pretty good results. These are the commitments of Colbún for 2023. 96% of our commitments about that have been supplied with hydroelectrical energy, renewable and natural gas. About 5% with the charcoal. And from this, 64% is hydroelectricity. And what is surprising, during the first semester 2023, only 25% of the supply required by our customers, fourth of it, came from hydroelectrical energy. However, during the second semester, this became 85%. So it is important to manage the stock, the flexibility of use of charcoal and gas. And today, we have learned, and there is a component that I say, and with my team, we said we have become extremophiles because we have lived any circumstances and we are still alive with good results. And this is because we are taking care of anything that is coming into the system. So we accept these conditions and challenges, and we are certain to provide effectively the total of our commitments with our customers. And we have to highlight, out of our sales, nearly 95% are free customers and small regulated customers. And that means we're going to have mostly free customers, and this is better from the point of view of the legislation. Another component, not only for Chile, for all the area internationally, it's significant to keep the principle associated to the free commerce, to the freedom to develop the generation of power, to keep a good economy. And this means to have the concept of the nodal prices. And this, in Chile, we have done it, and this is an example. And why? Because this allows the developments in the future are correct. That allows the short terms for the operation of the systems are correct as well. So what we have seen during 2023, between January and November, we had an average of our number one up to 24 from January to November. And we can see that as an average, the marginal costs of 24 hours had this profile. And we can see this figure, and there is a sort of, curve. And this is because we have conditions in Chile that lead us to recognize that there's an coupling, differences of prices that are significant in each node. On the upper side, it's about 150. I mean, here, during the sunny hours, in Puerto Montt, for instance. And why this happens? Because Puerto Montt, when there is no wind, locally, they don't have the capacity, and they have to import from the north. But the transmission is not enough to cover the whole, so we supply locally with thermal generation. And this leads to marginal costs as such. And also there's a coupling between the center and the north of the country. That is, during a proportion of hours, it is not possible to transfer the energy from the north to the south. However, this improved in the second semester because the hydroelectricity is higher. We have a lower uncoupling, and this is because we have abundance in the north and abundance in the south. So in both systems, the marginal costs are close to zero. And this is what we have lived for the last few months, and this will remain in the future. As a consequence, if we learn about this, the marginal cost, node prices, uncertainties, that means each of us have to properly manage their decisions. And this is risks management. And this has led us that most 99% of the agents of the systems didn't have any problems. And we can see that only 0.6 terawatts per hour with free customer had a problem. And this means only 1.2% had problems. And this is out of the market because they couldn't cover their risks to afford these extreme conditions. We had no consequences for the system, so we are healthy in terms of the general system, and we have to improve our decision making in our system. And finishing, this is a challenge. The challenge of observing the signals in the markets correctly. What we have seen, and this is the measure of temperature of our system, is that from 2017 up to 2023, you can see the marginal costs per hour and every day, because these are 24 hours of each year. And before 2020, we didn't have many oscillations. You can see this not as big. And what we can see now that between night and day, we can see the marginal costs vary in figures that are more than $100, close to 150. And this means the energy has two ways of transportation. One is the geography. I can move energy from the north to the south and vice versa. But also a second way, and this is in time. And what this tells us that we have to take care and maintain is that we have an opportunity to move energy in time. That is, I take cheap energy here and I use it in these hours. And therefore, what Chile needs and what we need is an asset solving that problem. I mean, that means probably we don't have to build more power plants, but rather to build an asset to take this energy, store it, and then to charge it and move it into the system later. And that is for storage capacity. We are working on this. We have a pilot project. This will be completed by last trimester in Diego de Almagro, 8 megawatts. This is laboratory, and we have learned that in terms of batteries, it's moving in the whole world. But as the challenge is not only here, we have used a portfolio where we have more than 2,500 megawatts, and Jose Ignacio will show this. We have more than this amount for project hub storage. And this is important because today we can test that in technology terms, we're moving ahead as private companies competing in this market, because not only Colbún is doing this, but also our competitors. So we can address this. What in terms of legislation we have been discussing only this year, and we have been moving forward privately, and so we have to keep this space. Paulina is going to tell us about these logics and how we will take care of this, how we will take care of our system to work properly.
Bien,
¿Se escucha? Sí. Para seguir en la línea
Okay,
que
we are
comentaba Juan
going to
Eduardo, vamos a
continue
hablar ahora de
with
los
this
temas
presentation, and now we will
regulatorios.
talk
Partir
about
contándoles que en
legislation,
abril de este año,
starting that in
2023,
April
el
this
Ministerio de
year,
Energía, en conjunto con la Comisión
the Ministry of Energy and the National Commission launched an agenda
para la transición energética, que tenía varias
for
medidas,
energy
incluidas
transition with
en
several
el fondo
measures in order
incentivar
to
la incorporación de más
boost
energía renovable
inclusion
y
of
así poder
more
cumplir con
renewable
las metas que nos
energies
hemos
and to
impuesto como país,
comply
que es ser
with
carbono
our
neutral al año
Chilean goals
2050.
to be carbon neutral
Y
by
esta agenda
2050.
tenía cuatro grandes
And
ejes
this
para seguir
agenda
la
had
línea.
4 pillars, as you
La
can see
promoción del
here.
storage, que por supuesto, como ya
And
explicó Juan
the
Eduardo, es
proposal of
muy importante
storage
para nuestro
is
sistema.
very significant for our system.
También mitigar ciertos riesgos que
Also,
tienen los
mitigation of
suministradores,
some risks
porque,
of some
como
suppliers,
comentó Juan Eduardo antes,
because Juan
algunas
Eduardo
empresas
commented
empezaron
this,
a caer en
some of the
insolvencia. Esto
companies
empezó a pasar el año
were
2022. Cómo
on
también
default.
incentivar la
And
eficiencia
also, we had to
operacional y
boost
flexibilidad
operational
para también
flexibility
incorporar más energía
in order
renovable
to
y
include
algunas
more renewable
iniciativas
energies and
políticas y
some
regulaciones
initiatives,
para efectos de
policies,
poder cumplir
and
con este objetivo.
legislation in order to
Como lo es, por
comply with
ejemplo, el
this
proyecto
objective.
de
For
transición
instance,
energética, el cual fue
the
presentado en julio
Energy
del
Transition
año
Project
2023
in July
en el Senado,
2023
en el Congreso.
in the Senate.
Y ahí
And
partió
there,
siendo un proyecto de ley con
we
varias
started
iniciativas
with the bid,
con varias
with
modificaciones.
the project with several
Se
modifications
discutió
in the law.
largamente en
This
las sesiones
was
de la Comisión de
discussed
Energía.
in the
Finalmente
Congress,
se vio entrabado,
and finally,
dado que
it was blocked because
el Senado vio, la
the
Comisión de
Senate,
Energía vio
the
que
commissions,
había un aumento, un
checked
alza
that
importante
there was
en
an
los costos de los
increase
clientes, se
in
venía
the
un alza.
cost of
Recordemos
customers.
que
Remember that
estuvo el precio estabilizado, ¿cierto? El PEC
the
1
price
incluso
was
no subió como el PEC
stabilized,
1,
the
precio
PIC
estabilizado
1
en el
was
año 2019,
stabilized in
luego
2019,
donde se
and
consideraba un
then
fondo de 1.350
we had
millones
a
de dólares
fund
para
of
poder estabilizar los precios de
$1,300
todos los
million
clientes.
to stabilize
Ese
all these
fondo no fue lo
tariffs, and this
suficiente
fund was not enough.
y al poco andar el año
And
2022
in
nuevamente hubo que
2022,
regular
once again, we
para
had to
estabilizar el precio.
regulate to
Un
stabilize the
segundo proceso de
prices,
estabilización de
a
precios.
second
Y a esta
process.
altura
And
también quedó
by
el
now,
precio estabilizado.
this
Por
is
lo tanto, los
short
senadores
again.
mostraron una preocupación
So
importante
the
por este tema
Senate
y le
was
pidieron al
concerned
ministro
about this, and they
detener
asked the
la discusión de este
minister
proyecto mientras no
to stop
conversemos
the
sobre cómo va
discussion and
a
to discuss
solucionar el problema del
about
cliente.
the solution
En
for
ese
the
sentido, se generó un
customers.
acuerdo
In
por
that
parte del
sense, we
Ministerio
had an
de los
agreement
senadores
within the
para avanzar en
ministry
ambos
and the
proyectos, un
Senate
proyecto de ley de transición
to work
energética
on a
y un
project
proyecto
for
de ley de
energy
normalización
transition
tarifaria.
and
Pero el
also
proyecto de ley de transición energética
for the
solo
tariffs.
en base a cuatro
And
puntos
this
estaba trabajando.
first project
La
had these 4 pillars:
reasignación de ingresos tarifarios,
the
esto tiene
reallocation
que ver
of
con
tariffs,
que
and
se
this
están
has to
generando
do with
un
the
concepto que se llaman
generation
ingresos tarifarios, que
of a concept that is
básicamente es la diferencia que
tariff
existen entre
income,
nodos,
that a difference between the
de los
nodes,
nodos del sistema,
between the nodes of the
y es una
system,
bolsa grande
and
de
this is
dinero.
a big bag
Y
of money.
la idea o lo que está
And the
propuesto acá
idea, or what
es
is
que
proposed
una
here,
parte de eso,
is that
una
a
parte
part of
importante,
this,
diría yo,
a significant
vaya
part,
para a solucionar los
will go
problemas que
for
tienen
the
hoy día
solution of the
empresas
problems on
privadas
some companies
que
some
decidieron
companies
tomar
have,
ciertos
that
contratos a
decided
cierto
to
precio.
take some contracts with certain prices.
Y se genera un concepto nuevo que se llaman los
And we have a
ingresos
new
tarifarios
concept. These
extraordinarios,
are tariff incomes
que
that are extra
es por
incomes.
sobre hoy día un
And this
10%
is
de lo
about
que son los ingresos
10%
tarifarios,
of
es
what
decir,
are the
vamos a hacer una bolsa de
tariff
ingresos tarifarios,
incomes. So we are going to
10%
have
de
this
eso
back,
va a seguir
10%
siendo
of
donde
that
está yendo hoy día, que es algo que se devuelve a los clientes, y
will
el
remain the
90%
same,
restante
and
va a ser
90%
usado para ayudar a las
will be
empresas
used for
para que no
helping the
empiecen a quebrar.
companies
Esta es
so
una
that they
preocupación importante
don't
del gobierno porque finalmente
get a
ellos
default.
son
This is
empresas y tienen
significant
contratos
because
con
these are
clientes
companies
regulados
having
y
contracts with
cuando ellos
customers,
salen existe
and when they get out of the market, there is an impact on the price. It's a minor impact, and this is happening in 1.2 of the contracts. But anyway, as Colbún, regarding this topic, we have said several times we don't agree this. A public policy should not help to make decisions on the private area when the agents of the market, like this, they know there are differences that may be generated because of fuels, hydrology, and there are some risks. And every agent has to be capable to face this to see what's the price for the contract. So we don't agree with these tariffs. However, we could agree, thinking that we have to help other operators based on 3 criteria. First, to be restricted for some time only, maybe next year, and also to have a loan, you know. This is a loan. The government provides a loan for these companies, and when they're okay, they have to return that money. And third, it has to be always thinking for those companies that are supplying regulated contracts, not free contracts, because this is not correct according to our criteria that a public policy solves problems among private entities. Second, a bidding of storage that was announced by the president. He talked about $2,000 million. This was included in this law. And at the beginning, when this happened in July this year, we believed it was something that was necessary. Storage needed a boost in order to do it in advance, but this has been extended in terms of all the law, and today the technology and the uncertainties have disappeared, such as the legislation on power. So we believe today we don't need to have a bidding for storage. However, once again, if we do it, that is according to the competition we have in the market and not as infrastructure for transmission. That is what the ministry wants. Third, increase and maximize the planning of transmission and improve the new transmission lines. In this point, we agree. And mostly what we want here is that the enlargement of the transmission lines are managed by the owner of the installation, and that has caused some delays, and there will be some modifications of the values for the investment of some projects, and probably because of the crisis. And finally, we talk about a social bonus, and this bonus, the idea of this, on the one hand, to be financed by the customers, and on the other hand, on public funds and through an increase of taxes. What I'm telling you is something that is not written, but this is what the ministry is showing for next bill in December. Now, regarding increase of taxes, we expect, according to the calculations, this will increase about $5 of tons of CO2. Today we have 6, so this will be $10 per ton. We agree on the taxes to increase. However, as long as this is done correctly, so we have to recognize within these variable costs of all our facilities. However, we believe this is a subsidy coming from the government. Another topic in this agenda is a decarbonization plan. This is something that is happening from 2019, and we have been talking about this plan for our country. And during this year, from September, the Ministry of Energy started some conversations, and we are participating here in each of these areas with 3 pillars. Let's talk about the modernization of the market. We will have a market of offer, how we do transmission.
dado que saldría el carbón,
Number two, that carbon is
el carbón y se ha fijado
coal
que
is
el
going to be
objetivo o
eliminated, and
poner foco en el
the objective
2030.
is to be focused on 2030.
En el eje 2, la idea es ver
In
cómo vamos
number
a hacer
two,
esta transición y cuál va a ser
how
el
we are going
combustible
to have
sustituto,
this
porque sabemos que se deben cumplir
change,
ciertos
and we will
estándares,
have
ciertos
new
aspectos de la
fuels
seguridad del
to
sistema.
comply with the
Y eso
standards.
es lo que habla el eje
And
2.
that is
En el
what
fondo, cuál van a ser las
the
termoeléctricas, cuál va a
second
ser el
part
rol del
is
gas
going to be.
natural
How
en
is
este
going to be
proceso
the
de
role
transición.
on the gas
Y como
on this
punto 3,
transition? And number three,
la transición justa y las
the
comunidades.
fair
¿Cómo
energy
vamos a ir
transition and
pasando,
communities,
haciendo este
how
proceso de
we will
descarbonización
make this
en las distintas
decarbonization
comunidades donde
process
hoy día
within the
el carbón
communities
forma una parte
where
importante para el
coal is
desarrollo de la
important
comunidad?
for the development of the
Estas
communities.
sesiones van a ser,
These
se están
sessions will
realizando ya,
be,
de hecho hoy día hay una,
I
el
mean,
eje 1,
we are
se
starting for
están
the
realizando
number
desde
one.
septiembre,
This
se
is
realizarán
from
hasta
September
fin de
until
enero. Y el objetivo
end
es
of
poder tener
January.
de aquí a
And the
abril una
idea is
ruta
to have from here to April
hacia
a
la
roadmap
descarbonización
towards
con foco, como se había arriba,
decarbonization
al
with the
2030.
focus on 2030.
Nosotros en cada uno de estos
For
discusiones
each
regulatorias
of
siempre
our
tenemos
discussions
estos
in
8
terms of
principios.
legislation, we
No
have
voy a
these
quedarme
these
los 8, quiero quedarme
principles.
solo con 4,
I
que
will
creemos
check
que son los más
4 of them that are the
principales.
most significant.
Primero, cualquier
First,
regulación debe ser siempre
any
eficiente
regulation
económicamente.
must be efficient.
Segundo,
From the
nunca se
economic
debe
point of
descuidar
view,
la seguridad
we
del
must
sistema,
not
que es algo
forget
que
the
siempre vamos a
security of
defender.
the system. This is something
Tercero, y me voy a
important.
bajar aquí,
Second,
deben ser,
I mean,
tienen que
third,
quedar
sorry,
señales estables para
we
el
have to
desarrollo
have
estables en el sentido de
sustainability
que
in the
no podemos
market,
estar cambiando la
meaning
regla
we cannot
todos los años,
change the
no
rules
para
every
ir
year.
probando, sino que tiene que darse
And
cierta estabilidad
we have to
a
have
estos procesos de
certain
inversión.
stability for the
Cuarto,
investors.
debe ser siempre
Four,
neutral
it
tecnológicamente,
has
es
to
decir,
be
no centrarnos en la tecnología que lo
technologically
soluciona, sino que más
neutral,
bien en el
not only
problema
with
que
the
quiere solucionar.
technology, but also trying to
Esos
solve
son
good
los
problems.
4 grandes
These are the
principios
4
que hemos
main
definido nosotros
principles
como
that we
Colbún,
have
los 4
defined
principales y
as
luego los
Colbún.
4 secundarios que son más bien
The main 4 ones
transparencia,
and the second 4
sustentabilidad,
ones,
¿verdad?
that is transparency,
Causalidad de costos y
sustainability,
también
cost,
simplicidad en las
causality, and
regulaciones
simplicity
y gradualidad.
in the regulations and graduality.
Y por último, para terminar, quiero hablar de los desafíos regulatorios que se nos vienen. Por
Finally,
supuesto que
all
la
the
incorporación de
challenges in
los
the
storage
future,
representa un
that is the
desafío.
inclusion of the
¿Cómo
storage,
vamos a ir incorporando?
how
Ya
we
se
are
está
going to
incorporando además
include
una gran cantidad de
a
almacenamiento.
big amount of storage
Pero
capacity,
sí, esto debe tratar de hacerse siempre, o debe hacerse siempre en realidad,
and this has to be done
a través de mecanismos
by
un mercado competitivo.
competition in the
Mejora de la
market,
transmisión, acá creemos que hay
improvements
que-
of transmission
tenemos
here.
que trabajar en
We have to
discutir
work
cómo mejorar lo que hoy día
and
tenemos,
discuss
el acceso
how we
abierto
can
a
improve what we have
¿Es
today.
realmente el acceso abierto que tenemos hoy la
Free
forma más
access
adecuada
today
o más eficiente finalmente para
is the most
permitir el
effective
acceso de los
way
distintos proyectos a las
to
redes?
allow access of the different
Se debe
projects
maximizar
into
el
the
uso de las
networks?
líneas existentes. Hoy día
Should we
tenemos líneas.
maximize
Se
the
habla
lines?
mucho de que no hay
Today we
todas
talk
las líneas
about
están congestionadas.
all the
Eso es
lines
cierto,
are
pero en
congested.
las horas de
That's
sol.
true,
¿Qué pasa a las horas de
but
no
during
sol?
some time.
En las horas de
But
no sol, sí
during the
existe una
night,
capacidad de transmisión.
there is a
Tenemos que ver
capacity of
cómo hacemos
transmission, and we have to check
regulatoriamente,
how
¿cierto? Para
we
incentivar
can
que se quiera utilizar
boost
o
that we
maximizar el
want
uso
to
de las
use or
líneas
maximize the
más
use
que
of the
solo
lines
seguir construyendo líneas
rather
nuevas
than
que sean
to
usadas
build
por una
new
fracción
lines
chica.
to be used only a portion of the
Y por
time.
último, la planificación,
Finally,
todo el proceso de
planning,
planificación de la transmisión que
the whole
claramente
process of
queda aún
planning
debe cuando se
has
hizo la modificación
has
de
been lagging
del
behind
uso
when
de
we
ley
had the
del
modifications
año
of this
2016,
project
se
of
dijo
law.
que la idea era que la
In
transmisión llegara antes
2016,
de la generación.
the idea
Y eso
was
al día de hoy
having
ha quedado un poco
transmission
corto,
before
por lo tanto,
generation, but this is not
siempre es bueno
true.
ir mirando qué
So
cosas
it's
de la
always
planificación
to
de la
look at
transmisión podemos mejorar.
what's in the planning we
Como
can
tercer
improve.
punto, la modernización del mercado. Hemos
Third
hablado harto
is
sobre
modernization
cómo
of the
vamos a
market.
migrar
We
como
have been
sistema
discussing
eléctrico
how
nacional
we can
al mercado de
migrate
oferta.
from a
Por lo
market
tanto,
of
también
offer.
tenemos que empezar a
And
tener esas
also, we have
discusiones.
to think about
Flexibilidad
these
del sistema, que por
discussions,
supuesto va a ser
flexibility
clave
of the system.
cada vez que se
This
va
is key.
incorporando
Every
más
time we
energía
include
renovable, como
more
mostraba María en las
renewable
fotografías,
energies
¿cierto?
as we
Se dan las
check
rampas, finalmente, que
and
es
we can
muy
see the
importante cómo
ramps,
vamos a
then this
flexibilizar y
is
poder dar
significant
la
how we
estabilidad
are
que
going
se
to be
necesita.
flexible and to be
Y por último,
stable in time.
muy
And
importante,
finally,
permisología.
what's important, all the
Permisología en el
permissions.
sentido de
all the permits in the sense of the development of new projects. And this is not only power, but also projects that have to do with a new challenge that is moving on desalination and green hydrogen. Here we have a challenge on how we will check the permits to start with these investments. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Juan Eduardo y Paulina, por sus presentaciones.
Thanks for these presentations. Thanks, Juan Eduardo. And for those who have some questions, raise your hand and we will use the microphone. The duration of the questions and answer is 10 minutes.
Hola, Juan Eduardo, buenos días.
Good morning.
Quería tocar un poco el tema del gas.
I wanted to talk about gas.
¿Qué tanta flexibilidad realmente hay
How
ahora
flexible,
la contingencia que
and
está dando en el
because
sur de
of the
Panamá?
contingency that we have in the Panama Channel,
Sabemos
that is going to
cuándo
become
va a
more
ser.
restricted, and we don't know how will
Es decir,
this
100%
continue.
del GNL que importa
Nearly
proviene de
100% of the
Tobago,
GNL
Estados
comes
Unidos.
from
Entonces,
Trinidad and Tobago and the United States.
¿hay alternativas
So there are
por su
some
lado?
other alternatives regarding
¿Puede
this.
comprometerse con
Argentina
contratos a
can
firme
commit
para
with
abril,
the
septiembre, tal
contracts
vez?
for April,
¿Podamos
September,
avanzar en algo?
maybe,
Si nos pueden comentar un poco
to compensate this.
por ese lado.
Could you talk about
La
this?
otra pregunta es más para
The
Paulina,
other
porque
question
son
is
el
for
protocolo
Paulina,
de
but it's
de
about
seguridad de transmisión, si es que se puede
security
flexibilizar en algo
criteria. Can we be
para
more
aumentar la capacidad,
flexible
si es
in
que
order
eso
to
es
increase the
factible
capacity if you
o
can
sería
see
más
that
peligroso
is
hacerlo?
possible or too dangerous to do it?
En lo concerniente
Regarding
a
your
rutas
question regarding the
naves que
routes
llegan a Chile,
of
hay
the ships
alternativas.
coming to
Esto
Chile, we have
se puede
some
pasar por el
alternatives,
estrecho Magallanes
and we can
y
use
por lo
the
tanto
Straits of
no
Magellan,
tenemos complications para el
so
mercado
we don't have
internacional
complications
en
regarding this
buenas
in the
condiciones. Lo
international
segundo,
market.
¿cierto? Es las
Second,
alternativas
the
del gas
alternatives
argentino.
for the gas
Tenemos
coming from
actualmente nuestra
Argentina,
gerencia de combustible
where we have had some
y también
conversations
con José
with
Ignacio.
them
Hemos
and also
ido
with
y hemos
Jose
estado
Ignacio.
conversando con ellos,
We
con
have
todos los
discussed with
productores
them, with all the
argentinos, para
suppliers in
poder
Argentina,
consolidando
in order
este
to
proceso de
consolidate
comercialización
a
flexible a futuro,
commercialization
que nos
agenda
permitan
that is
contratos
more
a
flexible
corto,
to have
a mediano y a largo
short,
plazo y en condiciones
medium, and
competitivas.
long-term
Y eso
contracts
yo
with
creo
more
que se
competitiveness.
va a modificar. Yo
I
creo que
think
ellos
we're going to
voluntarios
modify this. We have
para
willingness
nosotros,
from
pero
them
también para
to understand
adaptarse a
this
las
and
nuevas
also to be
condiciones.
adapted to the new
Tenemos que
conditions.
reconocer que en el caso del gas argentino,
We have to recognize that the gas from Argentina, we have all the infrastructure to be used this, so it's easy to have solutions that are good for both parties. I think this is positive in terms of our conversations. Regarding the MN1 that we have today, we have good discussions and we believe to solve this. In some instance, the coordinators are reticent to do this because they have to comply with this security criteria and they want to make sure they can do it. So we can do some progress, but so far, and this is maybe you can complement, so far, they didn't want to. When I talk about maximizing line, we can use other type of instruments to maximize the capacity that the power lines have today, not only to not regarding reducing the security criteria. We can improve the technology and to take advantage of the available capacity. And second, we have to insist on not only to develop the transmission lines today, but materially, there are some projects to be executed in transmission, but what's coming next is the development of the storage capacity to use all the energy available. This is possible, and it's ready to have an important exchange. So we're talking about 2,000 megawatts from the north to the south. and that is the capacity for storage that we may have.
¿Otra pregunta?
Another question?
Buen día, muchas gracias por la
Good morning.
presentación. Yo tengo
Thanks for your
una pregunta
presentation.
respecto a la-
I have a question about
Juan Eduardo habló de los
Juan Eduardo
problemas de
talked
desacople que
about
hay
the
en el
problems, the
node
uncoupling
de Puerto Montt.
problems that we have in the node in
Quería
Puerto
entender
Montt.
si
I
esa
want you to
situación,
understand
si se están
if
previendo
that
altas
situation,
temperaturas durante
thinking
el verano.
about high temperatures during the summer,
Eso- y ahora considerando
I
la
don't know
cantidad
if
de
now considering
energía embalsada,
the amounts of
¿debería dar la
energy
misma
in the
condición
dams,
este
can we
próximo
have the
verano?
same conditions for the next summer?
O si eso va a depender de los
Or
trabajos
that will
que
depends
no
on
sé
the
si están
works?
haciendo los trabajos
I
hasta Puerto
don't know
Montt
if you're doing some
Puerto
works
Montt.
to Puerto
No sé
Montt
si ya se
with these
hicieron o se
transmission
harán durante el
lines.
verano. ¿Qué va a
This was
pasar
done, this will be done during the summer. What will happen in
próximos meses?
these nodes for the next few months?
Igual cuando uno le preguntan cuál va a ser el costo marginal futuro, uno no
That's a
sabe.
good question for the
Quizás
marginal
tengan
cost in the
distintos
future.
escenarios.
We may
Y
have different
efectivamente
scenarios.
ahí,
And
no
actually
está
here,
solucionado todavía todo.
we haven't solved this,
Hay trabajos
everything.
por ejecutar para
There are
ampliar
some
distintos
works to be
tramos
executed
para
for
llegar a
different
robustecer
tracks,
el nodo
different
de
portions,
Puerto Montt y los que
to
están
have a
cerca.
better node in Puerto
Y
Montt and the
circunstancias que se pueden
surrounding
vivir a
area.
futuro
And the
son
circumstances in the future are
baja oferta de las
low
energías eólicas locales,
supply
y
of
repito
the
lo que señalé,
wind energy
que
locally.
estamos obligados por seguridad para abastecer el sistema a operar con el
We
máximo
are obliged to
hidroeléctrico
operate
local
with the
más
maximum amount of
generación local con
hydroelectricity
centrales térmicas
plus
caseras.
local thermal energy.
Yo creo que este verano no está descartado
I think
completamente
this
y es
summer,
muy
this
probable
is
que
not
se repita.
discarded and
De
probably
hecho,
this will be repeated.
ha estado postergando la
Now, the
ejecución de
coordinator has put off
trabajos en la línea de
the
transmisión
coordination of the
precisamente
works in the
para
transmission
evitar que
lines
se den
in order
circunstancias
to avoid
costos marginales
to have these
extremadamente
marginal costs
porque
that
al
could be
ejecutar los
too high.
trabajos
Because if we
se
execute the
requiere
works,
dejar fuera de servicio
we're
parte
required
de la
to
transmisión.
leave
Y
aside some
conforme
of this
señalé,
transmission
local
capacity.
incrementa sustancialmente los costos.
And this
Yo creo que va a
increases
ser
the
imposible seguir
costs.
postergando
I
esto
believe
y va a
it
haber
is
que
not
ejecutar los
possible to
trabajos
put off,
ya.
and we will
Creo
have
que
to
eso es un
execute the
desafío
works
importante que tiene nuestro
soon.
coordinador y
This
el
is a
propio
challenge that the
sistema.
coordinator has,
Pero no está descartado.
but it is not discarded.
Hola, buenos días, gracias por la presentación. Respecto a lo que mencionaban recién de los argumentos para que los
Regarding what you
de
mentioned
almacenamiento
about the
sea
arguments for the
considerado como un
storage
sistema de transmisión
capacity
o
that is
la
included
generación,
as
como dicen ustedes, ¿cuáles son
transmission
los
lines or
argumentos
generation, what are the
fuertes por un lado
arguments
y por el otro?
on the one hand or on the other?
Parto un poquito ahí, si quieres, Pablo. Mira,
I would say that
primero, ¿cierto? Hay dos familias de
first,
soluciones de
we have
almacenamiento.
two families of
Hay
solutions
una
for
solución de
storage.
familia de
One
almacenamiento que son
is for the
de corto plazo,
storage
es decir,
in the short term,
cargo
that
y
is
descargo en 15 minutos. Eso
within
claramente
15 minutes, I
puede ser
have charge and
considerado
discharge.
de transmisión, porque
That is
apoya
for the
mucho la
transmission,
operación
supporting
del sistema de transmisión.
the
No hay arbitraje de
operations of
energía
the
para cargar y
grid.
trasladarla en el
There is
tiempo.
no possibility to
La
have a
segunda
longer
y
time
último
of
segmento,
storage.
que es
If we
el
have the last
almacenamiento de más
segment, that
largo
is
plazo,
storage in the long term,
estamos observando lo mismo
we
que
can
hemos
see the
observado,
same that we have
diseñado,
seen
construido
and
y
designed
operado
and
por
built
décadas.
and
El almacenamiento
operated for
de
decades
la
in the
capacidad
southern
de
area.
embalse hidroeléctrico
Here,
hemos hecho
with
eso
the
durante
electric
muchos
dams, we
años.
have done it for many years.
Nuestro planteamiento
Our
conceptualmente
opinion
en
is
el
that
norte de Chile
in the north
podemos
of Chile,
replicar lo que
we
teníamos en
can
el sur.
replicate what we
Sur
had in the
miramos
south
de pasada,
with
se
hydraulic
agregaron los embalses y tenemos
power
grandes
plants,
sistemas de
with dams,
almacenamiento.
and we have
¿Qué
big
tenemos en el norte?
storage
Tres
systems. In the
elementos.
north,
Uno,
we have three components.
centrales fotovoltaicas.
One
Ya
is
la central hidráulica
solar
pasada,
power
lo único que les
plants,
falta son los grandes
but what they need
ciclos
is
de
the,
replicar eso.
let us say, the
Fotovoltaica,
turbines.
equivalente a central hidráulica de pasada.
Solar
Lo segundo,
energies,
lo que
similar
tenemos
to
son
the
las
south,
baterías, que son las
and the
baterías.
storage
Por lo tanto, si
for
sumamos esas dos,
to be
tenemos
used with
equivalentes
batteries. So
centrales
with this, we have an
hidroeléctricas embalse,
equivalent
pero
to
en el norte.
hydroelectrical and dam
¿Y qué
power
falta
plants, but
para que
this
el
in the
sistema
north.
grande que gira
And
y
what
dé
we need
estabilidad
in
y la
this
seguridad del
to provide
de
stability
la estabilidad del
and
sistema y
security
el
in
nivel de
terms of
infraestructura
a
de
stable
almacenamiento es muy
system?
técnico?
These are the synchronous condensers that we will install in the northern area. In the system, with these three areas, solar energy, batteries, and condensers will be equivalent to what we have in the south. So therefore, this is an activity that is related to the generation of power. And this has changed, and we have to do it separately, and we should have an amount of storage capacity to be built by a private sector, and then other agents can use this infrastructure in terms of the storage capacity, and if there is one or more operator, the coordinator will be in charge of the distribution. So the first, we have centralized planning. Second, if the coordinator will operate, he's going to be a coordinator, so we believe that is a second anomaly. And third, that we will not boost and we will have a higher risk on the generation. So the project has been transforming and we have new indications. We altered the free competition in the generation and there is no incentive for private investment. This is our position. Could you say something else? Well, this is all set, I would say. So we have time for one more question. Any other questions? We have a final question to be asked. Online, any other questions? Nothing? Okay, thank you very much. Next, José Ignacio Escobar, CEO of Colbún, with the presentation of our agenda by 2030. Ana Luisa Vergara will expose about the main news developed by the Management of Sustainability and Environment of Colbún.
Buenos días, ¿cómo están?
Good morning.
¿Está bien el cafecito? ¿Sí? Tienen que estar más preguntones, ¿eh? Hay que generar debate, diálogo.
We have to create this debate. As Pauli and Juan Eduardo, we have a lot of challenges. And as our president said, we believe we have an expectation posed. We will have to find new opportunities, and this is what we will comment here. First, what's the purpose? We tried last year, and this year, it was not the idea of creating, but to be a catalyst for the purpose to start. And what is our business? So we have here, in a simple manner, all what we are doing, especially to be aligned with our agenda by 2030. And this summarizes our purposes, the impact, and to whom we should be working with. This is an integration with the stakeholders, shareholders, customers, workers, suppliers that had a lot of problems in the energy transition. For them, we do all this work. Second, the idea of what we want to do. We have a first group, that is the core business. The business, based on what we have commented, has provided pretty good results, optimizing our assets in the transition. This is not optimizing assets, but within the context of energy transition, where flexibility and effectiveness are clear, regardless of the discussions or the role of the gas as we decide in our society. We have to have the best assets for this, the best of the best in everything. Renewable energies, all our growth based on this and the storage. We want to double our capacity. more renewable assets, and also what Juan Eduardo said, to replicate our portfolio of offer that is very effective in the Central South, and with these elements: energy, power, and services for our customers. Third, to increase our base of customers, we have oriented to this idea of free customers, because this allows you to have a direct relationship with less legislation where you manage the risks. And second, because we have a value proposal with a better quality, with a good proposal for energy and also other components. Today, any customer and customers that are more sophisticated, any medium or large customer have some management, and they want to have a supplier providing solutions, not only electricity, an electricity solution that could be a contract, but also self-generation, management of power, desalination. They want to have one-stop shopping for the solutions for our customers to be developed. So here we have a lot of work. Second, a second set that is the same core of the business to be expanded through energy solutions, through transmission solutions that are enablers of these solutions, because the problems that we have seen in the difficulty of getting the permits for these transmission systems, the rigidity, we want to have the control of certain transmission assets that are strategic for our portfolio in our projects. To develop that, we have the skills and the knowledge and the technology, and this is something we want to take care of this, even though we sold part of this. Second, our experience in Chile, and we can say this, seems to be good in other markets. In many areas, they are lagging behind in terms of commercialization. There are some countries that are well developed, but they are just starting in long-term contracts with their customers. We've been working for 40 years in this area. There are many countries advancing in other areas, but they don't have the models of prediction, multimodal programs that we have, in order to have projections of the marginal cost and to have these curves and the differential of prices with the level of sophistication that we have. I think our value proposal of Colbún could be very good in these areas. Finally, even though this is just starting, we are convinced that our area of water or hydrogen will be more important in the generation of power. A mining company requests water, power, electromobility, hydrogen, etc. This is the door for Colbún to get out of the local market and to export this into other markets abroad. So with these three components, if we are responsible in time by 2030, this is going to be really significant in our business. And how shall we do it? And also we have a significant reflex on how we can get these objectives. So we have a focus on the capabilities that we have. And within many, we have defined those that are here. Commercial excellence, this is the core of the business, to manage properly the risks of our business for the welfare of our customers and our company. Differentiated models. We cannot see electricity, but in a way we provide life to these solutions that are more effective for our customers. The development of our personnel. We have people working here. We have innovation, motivated people in order to grow our business. And we have the focus on the development of our teams. Excellence in the legislation. We have the duty to have a voice in terms of the legislation because we are in this market. This is an interesting market, socially, legally, politically interested market. So we have to be part of this legislation, and we want to participate also in the new markets on how the legislation is going to be in terms of desalination, because this is important for the business. To value, to create value for these opportunities. That is what we did in the possibility. We had some opportunities in different countries. We assessed that, and now we did it all the way around, where we can see our capabilities provide value, and then we go to the market. And this is what we will see later. Obviously, this requires capital and resources. We will do it. This is not going to be an adventure. We will need to have a comprehensive plan on how to finance this responsibly. Of course, remaining with our metrics, with the degree of investment. We have been working hard to have this position today. We are extremely healthy, and we want to continue in this path. And also ESG. Annalisa will let you know about this. This is a fundamental pillar on how to do it from micro, the relationship with the communities, up to the relationships of the stakeholders, the government, communities, etc. That is significant with the ESG, and especially today, especially with the G, that is the most important, governance, compliance, and finally, innovation. As all companies, if we are not innovating, we can die. You can see there are many things we are doing that are interesting in terms of innovation to enable all these pillars that will provide an advantage before the competition. Now, what are the actions that we have today based on this? First, responsibility. Chile is a leader in energy transition. We are in the best rankings, energy country attractive index, etc. The Bloomberg, etc. And I think we believe that the second part is also important. We have been moving forward, and this is good to go from 5% as 35% on renewable energies. Not many countries can say that they have about 60% of renewable energies, and now we have to be responsible. We started the first step, but 40% to be decarbonized. We have to thinking well about how to do it. Now we have to improve the fruits and also to provide an equilibrium to this sustainability and also to be competitive and safe for all the users and companies. An integrated process. This is not only of us. This is for people making up Colbún, suppliers, customers. This is something for all of us to be consistent, and this is quite significant. When we commit our word, that is there. Our word is our bond, more than a contract or a document. If we say that we are going to take the flag, taking care of the problems, we will do it. We are going to face, no matter what happens, in situations such as deciding on the effluents, we're going to face this situation and we're going to be transparent to solve all the problems that we have. For the suppliers, this is significant. Energy transition cannot sacrifice the suppliers in the regions. all of us have to be benefited from here. There is a lot to work in terms of our consistency, etc. People. All this obviously works with people. And when we talk about this, people for Colbún, communities, customers and suppliers, everyone has to feel our purposes. Positive footprint. Not only we want to talk about the big issues of carbon, climate change, Chile has some other problems that are local. What happens with the local impacts of our activities? We're also concerned about these small details on how communities are suffering hydric stress, problem of sanitary problems. And here we have the focus. We have to participate on the world issues, but also to be proactive on local, everyday problems of our communities. All this to be done with passion. We have to do our best. So, for each of the pillars, we're always looking at this, trying to see some tuning between the pillars and the ODS. Especially for our stakeholders, we have some significant goals in terms of reduction of emissions and water consumption, and also the management of the residues. And we don't talk much about this management of residues. Have you been in Diego de Almagro, where there is a lot of garbage there? Is it reasonable to be there in the desert and to see, a lot of garbage coming from the power plants? Do you think that is sustainable? The ashes, for instance, we take care of more than 80% of our ashes to provide a second life and not to use a landfill. We are taking care of more than 3,200 reels, that is for one of the parks, 800 kilometers of cables. A small company in Lunares and Talca, how many kilometers is that? We have a whole distribution in medium tension, and we want all the cables and all the reels. We could leave them there, but they're going to be disposed of in the different areas. So this is what we are talking about, being positive, because all the stakeholders have to receive a benefit from our works. Regarding the core business pillars, remember when we talked about the management, this is what we are today. And here you can see everything, but what I want to show you is that Colbún had a significant development in terms of technology and geography from the center to the south and Peru. But what happens with our customers? Initially, they were regulated customers in the central area, but we have taken some other customers in the mining area as a good supplier. And with this risks management, we have decided to start cover the geography of the northern area. So out of this picture, we go to this. And as you can see here, we have a plan of development of wind, solar energy, store of energy to complement this offer with energy, complementary services to comply with the needs of our customers. Solar plants, storage, etc. Some of these are under construction. Horizonte 72%, is that right? 78%. So we have solved all the problems of the components. In Monte, we have some transportation for those. It's been 2 years of modifying the processes to transport the components. We have a wide variety of different projects: storage, standalone, wind energy, solar, and this also with Horizonte. For the next few years, we will see this is increasing, becoming a reality in time, as our contracts with our customers are closing. Maybe we will provide supply to some of them. And this says, in the midterm, we're going to keep our balance between the offer of power, well distributed along the country, with a portfolio of contracts that is well distributed. And with this, we're going to face all the problems of increase of prices, bottlenecks, maintenance of the grids, for instance, variations in terms of water available. So with this, we will see that the management of our portfolio is going to be the same that we have remained, but the technology has changed, only that. Here, this is Horizonte, is the inflection point. Here, we'll add more than 2.5 Oteras in the north in order to supply mining with Diego de Almagro Sur, with 8 megas and 32 megas of storage, plus the next megas. And this is the roadmap of these 4,000 megawatts. And between Horizonte and Diego de Almagro, we have 1,000, a fourth of the gold. And these are the figures. You can see the scale of this project. This is the biggest project of wind energy, the biggest for one stage. And in Brazil, there is another one bigger than this. Regarding the expansion of limits, first, adding value. And here you can see the evolution that we had in terms of customers, but also the energy we manage. Last year, we closed with 4.5 teras of energy that we manage. We produce 12, and we will reach that more of the half that we generate is being managed. Self-generation, different types of services, and this will increase every year because customers need one-stop shopping. And today, this is integrated. We can see the services that we are offering. Some are according to the law of energy transition, self-generation law. And for this, just to give you an example, and there's no detail, but have you listened about the systemic, what we have that are causing trouble to systemic costs? And this is because of this variable generation that requires services to support the ups and downs. During the sunset, Chile is in the same line, so the sun goes down at the same time in the whole country. That means 4,000 megawatts of ramp in 2 hours. 4,000 megawatts that disappear in 2 hours. So we don't turn off or we don't stop consuming that. In order to supply, we need inertia, other centrals, so we have to go from 50 to 200, and this has a cost. 10 years, the cost was $2, and today is 20. But it's between 15 to 20, so when we have generation that is behind the meter generation, that helps with this. And today, for instance, we are building 9 megas in Polpaico, closed here. We have installed self-generation in some areas, in some small mining companies, because we have a combination of a good contract in the long term and to have a self-generation, this combination is what provides most value to our customers. This is the best, to have new technologies, long-term contracts. We may use batteries, and all these solutions, they say, okay, you can help us, offer us the best value for the long term. Regarding expanding our limits abroad, we have been working hard on this, on what we want to find, not what is coming to us. Because you tell us there are a lot of opportunities. We can see there are some different projects, but we said, let us say where we can work, and we defined a scale of opportunities. Colbún cannot participate in these big portfolios of 2-3 gigas. This is another kind of capacity. But we may find some other opportunities in diversification, what type of risks we want to manage, what type of this portfolio or what technology we want to use, not only renewable energies. We have a different mix of greenfields, brownfields, etc. This is work in progress, but we'll still expect by 2030 to have some additional works in Chile and Peru in order to add value to all this. Finally, new businesses. And here we have a summary of both water and hydrogen in Chile. And here this is important. The demands of desalinated water, that is a condition for any industry project. All the mining projects, the existing ones are turning into desalinated projects. All the new projects will consider within this a desalination plant. And today, distribution water companies are looking for desalination in order to solve water crisis in Petorca, O'Higgins, and Valdivia. Even there, we need desalination plants. We are not talking about industrial water only, but for home consumption, and we can see the first idea of desalination water for agriculture. There are some agricultural projects using desalinated water. But for these projects, we have opportunities in the agricultural area. So we have desalination projects with many customers and many purposes. Obviously, we are going to have many more in the country and in the world. With hydrogen is the same. Hydrogen has the problem of volume. It's not dense, so for domestic consumption we can use with several projects, and they want to replace their use in the airports of Santiago, for instance, in order to have green hydrogen in the airport. Many customers trying to transform their processes with hydrogen. We are reconverting our cooling systems using this energy, but instead of buying this, we can produce that, and we are installing solar plants, and with the hydrogen going directly to the centrals, the CO2 footprint goes down significantly. We don't have to store it, and this is in Phoenix in January and also in Nehuenco. Once again, optimized assets, gas power plants using green hydrogen. And for export of hydrogen, difficult to do it with the hydrogen because of the density. So we have to turn this into two things: in ammonia through the Haber-Bosch and green ammonia, or also it becomes a biofuel, ethanol, etc., as in the projects in Magellan, doing liquid fuels based on green hydrogen. we're working on the ammonia.
elemento de bastante uso, con muchas aplicaciones,
This is very well used,
que al hacerlo amoníaco se condensa
and
mucho.
if becomes ammonia, it's condensed, so we have the infrastructure in the ports and ships to produce ammonia, and the bottleneck here,
De alguna forma, al
in
tener
a
un
way,
concepto de electricidad
as we
renovable,
have an
hidrógeno,
renewable
hidrógeno
energy,
limpio,
hydrogen,
ammonia
ammonia,
como combustión, tiene que ser
ammonia
competitivo.
export, it has to be very competitive.
Aquellos sectores industriales que
For
puedan
those
eventualmente
industrial areas
electrificarse,
that
evidentemente lo más barato
may
es
be
producir electricidad
electrified, obviously,
y
is to
consumir
produce
cierta
electricity
electricidad.
and to
Y
use it
aquellos
as
lugares del
such.
mundo que no puedan
But
hacerlo
for
por
those
distintas
areas
restricciones
that
de espacio,
cannot do that
u otras
because of
razones, como por ejemplo
restrictions
Japón
of
o Corea,
space,
en
or
Japón tú no
in
puedes
Japan
poner
or Korea,
polifotones,
in Japan you
resulta
cannot
costoso
have
instalar
these
el aerogenerador.
horizons.
En Japón tú
We
no puedes
cannot do
poner
it.
10.000
In Japan, you
megavatios o
cannot
20.000
have
megavatios de planta fotovoltaica,
10,000
no hay lugar.
megawatts of solar
Pero
plants
Japón sí tiene,
because
por
there is no
ejemplo,
room.
miles y
But
miles y
Japan
miles
has
de megas de carbón.
thousands of megawatts
Y
of
el camino que ellos
charcoal.
optaron, al igual que muchos otros países
And
que tienen restricciones
what they
fue,
chose
el problema de la
with
central
these
de carbón no es la
restrictions,
central en sí misma, es el combustible.
the
Si
problem
tienen
with
combustible
these
limpio,
power
la
plants
central
is the
va a ser
fuel.
tan
But
renovable
if
como una
they
planta nuclear
have
o una
clean
planta
fuel,
eólica.
they're
Por lo
going to be
tanto, aquellos
renewable energies.
recursos del
So
mundo donde no se
for
puede
these
electrificar de
areas
forma
where
directa,
we
sino que
cannot
tenemos que producir
electrify with the
y utilizar un
grid,
combustible
but
limpio,
actually using clean fuels,
el amoníaco queremos la oportunidad.
ammonia
Tremenda
is
oportunidad.
the
Nos permite
opportunity for
exportar
us.
electrones
This allows to
renovables de
export
Chile a
electrons
Estados Unidos,
made in
como Japón, Corea
Chile
u otros.
to Japan,
Y eso estamos
Korea, or
trabajando en la alianza
others.
con Sumitomo
We're working
en
with
proyectos de
this
amoníaco
in
en el
Sumitomo
extremo sur y el extremo norte,
in
porque están los mejores
the
recursos.
northern and
Con
southern
foco
areas.
inicial en el extremo norte,
With
aquí
the
existen
focus
puertos,
on the north, we have
por lo tanto, acá creemos que
projects.
se puede desarrollar
We
más
have the
rápido
industrial
dejar la
area,
amonía,
so
pero
we
yo creo
can
que a largo plazo,
develop a
con
half
las
of
demandas
ammonia.
que van a haber
But
de
in the
energía
long
en el futuro,
term, with the demands of ammonia
va a haber
in the
espacio para
world
más.
in the future, we will have some
Y
room
aquí estamos
for
compitiendo
this.
básicamente
And
con
here
Chile,
we are competing
Sudáfrica y Australia.
Chile, South Africa,
Tres
and
países del mundo que
Australia.
tienen el
3
potencial
countries
de producir
with the
amonía como
potential
combustible
of producing
para abastecer el mundo con energía.
ammonia to supply the world. This is an opportunity that is huge, and we want to capture
Y
that
bueno,
in
por los temas de
Cornwall.
ESG,
And for
Luisa Vergara,
ESG,
que nos va a contar un poco
Ana
cómo estamos
Luisa
haciendo
is
todo
going to
esto,
tell us
pero
what
siempre
we
desde
are
la
doing
mirada
with this,
de ESG
with a view
a
of
nivel global mundial.
ESG
Venga para acá.
as a world
Ahí sí, le
category.
toca la otra parte.
So then I will continue with this.
Muy buenos días.
Good morning.
Muy buenos días a todos.
Good morning, everyone.
Antes de entrar a ahondar
Before
en la
starting
capacidad que
this,
menciona
in
José
terms of
Ignacio, que es parte de
capacity
nuestra estrategia y que
that
tenemos
Jose
que
Ignacio
generar
mentioned,
músculo y
that
desarrollarlo
we
aún
have to
más,
generate the
quiero
muscle,
reforzar temas que ya
I
José
would like
Ignacio
to
y incluso nuestro
reinforce what
presidente del
Jose
directorio
Ignacio
comentaron,
and the president
cómo la
commented
sostenibilidad
on how
está
sustainability
en la esencia de
is the
nuestro
essence
propósito, como
of
ustedes
our
vieron,
purpose.
el propósito
As you could see,
explicita nuestro
the
interés por
purpose
hacer las cosas en
explains
equilibrio
our
con el
interest
planeta
to have an
y buscar
equilibrium with the
agregar valor a
planet
los grupos de
and
interés,
to
no
add
siempre
value
impulsando sus
to
sueños y
the
proyectos.
stakeholders
Así
with
también
dreams
nuestros
and
valores que
projects,
comentó
and
José
also
Ignacio
our values
contienen
commented
también
by Jose
explícitamente las
Ignacio.
conductas que
This
esperamos
tells
de
all the
nuestros
conducts
trabajadores,
we expect
hablando del
from
medio
our
ambiente, conocemos
employees
la dignidad de
in
las
terms of
personas, la seguridad de las
environment,
personas.
dignity of people's
Y más
safety,
importante aún,
and most
cuando miramos nuestra
importantly,
estrategia
when we
corporativa
look
al
at our
2030,
corporate strategy by
cuando
2030,
hablamos de
when we talk
optimizar
about
nuestros activos o ser
optimization of our
efectivos,
assets
de crecer en
and to
energías
be
renovables,
effective, to
de
grow
ofrecer, por ejemplo, a nuestros clientes
renewable
cada
energies,
uno de
to
los
offer
servicios
our
que nosotros
customers
estamos
all the
entregando a nuestros
services that
clientes,
we're
lo que
providing,
finalmente hacen
and
es
this
ayudarles y
finally
colaborarles en reducir
helps and
su propia
cooperate
huella de
to
carbono.
reduce their own carbon footprints.
Acá, cuando hablamos de los nuevos
And
negocios
here, when we
ambientes,
talk about
hidrógeno
new
verde o
businesses on
infraestructura
green
de agua, ¿no es cierto?
hydrogen,
Dada la
water
precisa
infrastructure,
problemas de sequía extremo, la falta
because
de
of
agua,
the drought
también son una
problems we
realidad
have,
que
this
contribuyen,
is
¿no
also
es
a
cierto?, a
solution
reducir o a
to
adaptarse al
reduce
cambio climático.
or to be adapted
Entonces,
to
ahí
climate
nosotros vemos
change.
en la esencia de
So
nuestra
here we
estrategia
can
cómo se
see in
integra
our
nuestra
essence
sostenibilidad.
how we
Y
integrate
adicionalmente,
all
como decía
this.
José Ignacio,
And additionally,
esta
we want
capacidad de desarrollo
this
sostenible
capacity of sustainable development to permeate each of these areas. Apart from those we have mentioned of carbon footprint or the use of the energy efficiently, reduction of water consumption, and the NPS that we mentioned, this is all the result on how happy our stakeholders are in terms of our operation. But also we have new goals that have to do with topics of biodiversity. Have you heard that in the Lago Chapo, in the south of Chile, we have a DRC, this is named Rincón del Sur, but we want to grow and to have a new project of environmental conservation for 2030, and also to continue with the monitoring of flora and fauna in our surrounding areas and to provide value in our areas for the most valuable species for the communities. In terms of gender equity, from 2018, we have a plan with several pillars to increase female participation in areas such as where most men are. And we have done some initiatives in terms of gender equity and some programs to have more women participating in these areas. In the operations of our power plants, where it's difficult to find these women, we have achieved 23% in our manning, and the challenge is to have 30% of women participation. And also women in the area of leaderships, that is important for us. In terms of communities, Colbún has been recognized, and we have seen the different programs we have with the communities. This is for entrepreneurships programs, tourism in our facilities, Parque Angostura, Machicura, Lago Chapo, for instance. And with this strategy, we want to create new focus, and I like this because this is related to our essence of the business. Trying to find solutions of water and energy with the communities. Where communities don't have water resources, we can improve this, we can have new projects to work with these communities. And here, this is an example. We have several of this. We are going to talk about some of them later, and this is a school that is named Pocoihuen by the Central Canutillar. And what we did, this is an innovation program to capture rainwater and to have a better access of this school to water. In terms of safety, this is also key for us. It's one of the most important pillars, and within our objectives, we have several safety indicators, but also we want to move forward to have KPIs in terms of prevention, to have more reportability in terms of preventive actions. Regarding suppliers, Colbún has been recognized for the last few years in terms of becoming one of the best payers, and this is still a challenge, but we also, apart from this, we have some other challenges regarding preventing risks and to help our suppliers to become strategic partners for us in order to get this strategy completed. So we have applied some criteria of social or ESG programs for the biddings and the selection of our suppliers. And once they are working to continue with this assessment in terms of their environmental assessment. And one example that we launched this year, and you can see that on our website, is the calculation of emissions and CO2, and in case suppliers don't know how to measure their carbon footprint, and here they have a reference of their emissions. In terms of governance, Colbún has progressed, but we'll still have the challenge to identify our gaps, and here our commitment is to have new certifications in terms of governance. Today we have measured a new system assessing each of the items, Dow Jones and all the others. We try to find some specific for governance. Talking about our main challenges in terms of sustainability, first, this has to do with integrating this ESG and reinforce integration. These criteria to be used in any investment decision-making processes that are renewable, or purchases as well. Another challenge that is for the long term has to do with the internal culture, not only in terms of the big decisions, but also each worker in the different areas may understand how they contribute in terms of sustainability, and also to broadcast our efforts in terms of ESG, and also an example that I don't know if you see the campaigns where Colbún started to be positioned, our brand massively associated to the neutrality of the emissions of the Pan American Games. And short time we did it with the selection of rugby. So this is a new view of Colbún, where we have this brand associated to this idea to contribute to carbon neutrality. And finally, I want to show you some examples of this. In our Big Horizon project, we have talked about this, of the GSG to be integrated here. So for any project where Colbún works, we have an approach to the communities and also local presence. Here we have in Taltal offices apart from the project, and for the communities are easy to talk about requirements. In terms of communities, we have the programs that is named Horizonte Educa as a program, where a high school in Taltal, we have been working with them and also universities to certify students in different topics to help us on electrical areas, etc., not only for Colbún projects, for any other projects in the surrounding area. And we have had some practitioners, and also we have 2 of these students hired in the company. As an average, women, the percentage is about 12%, and at the beginning we have women working in male areas. In terms of human rights, we started the process of due diligence to see how our projects, we can avoid these problems on human rights in terms of supplies, apart from proper payment or early payment. We also have propagation clauses where we say that not only we worry about paying correctly in time to our suppliers, but they, with their own subcontractors, they pay in time. Carbon footprint is being measured. We are reusing sewage water in a process for drying for watering the roads. And the challenges that we have, Jose Ignacio said, in terms of reusing the reels for the cables, that's a lot of wood. that in the future could be properly used, not only simple valuation, but also that we can use maybe in some areas or projects, and also safety. This is a challenge where we double the amount of people in Colbún working in such projects. We have to reinforce our safety standards to prevent accidents. Now we will continue with José Ignacio and innovation. Thank you. In order to close this, our objective is that the ESG is not something additional to our work. This is a culture in terms of safety. Chile has a long story on industrial safety, and this is the everyday work. Everyone is safety. This is the same. Colbún. In Colbún, we live ESG when we have to deal with the supplier, contractors, communities. All of us are ambassadors of safety, not only Ana Luisa. I was in Horizonte. We had 1,200 people in this project living together in the desert, and it's good to see how these details improve the everyday work, how we check the residues, how we work with safety, use proper management with the suppliers. This is a culture of ESG. In terms of innovation, it's fundamental. This helps us to provide better solutions, and here we are refocused our strategy to be adapted to new technologies. And here we have our corporate strategy that has been already commented. We can see how these policies to turn into our stakeholders in terms of innovation of Colbún, but also to be all of us innovating. And basically, this has become two focus: centralized management to be deployed outside. So, for instance, here we have opportunities of storage systems. This is key to be competitive and sustainable for our customers. So we're going to go beyond lithium, new storage systems, not only lithium, because lithium has a lot of competition. It's used for cell phones, computers, cars, so the demands of lithium makes that the cost of the raw material has not the proper, it's about $300, and some studies should say it's 330, and according to many studies that I read, we should have 200. But this is not 200, and we can see the demand is increasing. So let's go beyond lithium with the metal hydroxide storage systems, sodium batteries, CO2 batteries, all types of technologies to be centralized, used, and to be deployed with our portfolio of generations. And decentralization. We're not capable to have an eye on each area in terms of energy. So we started a program for decentralized management so that we have all these pillars that the stakeholders tell us where we are more flexible, where I can have more flexibility, where I can reduce water consumption. And with this, we have captured these initiatives. LIDE innovation centers in each of the areas. We work with the universities, etc. Many activities to capture this innovation ecosystem. We have a lot of conversations on energy transition in terms of innovation, and this is an opportunity. And I will show you some examples. What is the focus on this? To provide that each of the pillars of our agenda is a sustainable, competitive pillar with the best assets, with the best projects, the best storage system, the best water projects, etc. This has made us to comply with our agenda. Some examples. A key is the capability of prediction of the solar power systems. One of the problems is the pyrometers get dirty. Who cleans them? So we are the first where we install some robots for this. This increases the prediction system to know how much we're going to produce, and we can better model this. It could be not only the curve looking like a duck, it's going to be different. Rural water projects. We have a commitment in all our areas with stakeholders. We have different type of technology. For instance, what we showed in Nehuenco, where we have the capture of the rainwaters to turn it into potable water. This is the first school that will have this water that is going to be certified water that is 100% potable coming from rainwaters. Santa Rosa de Colmo, where there is no rain, what can we do? We can say we have an osmosis plant. We can use this so that it is a demineralized water to be used in the boilers. The membranes are removed, and then these membranes can be used, and we cannot pile up all this. You know, it's difficult to be disposed of, but we can use them for the APRs. Through a local company, we started to develop these membranes. We have a second life with this, and they are put into this system, improving the quality of water of the APRs. This is filtered with our membranes, and we have this process, social innovation. And what happens if we go into the north, where we don't have this amount of water? Hydro panels. We have a technology in the United States. This is a solar panel, and within this, they have a condensation system, a patented technology, and basically, you put the panel, and you can get water. Instead of electrons, you will have water here. And we installed this technology in Diego de Almagro, Horizonte, and for the same solutions that in the south is different, in the north, with the condensation of the air. Literally, this is managed. You put the panel here, and 15 minutes you will have water. As simple as that. Etc. Innovation works on Valparaíso, storage systems. Here we are working with Re-Energize to transform this pumping system. Instead of using water, it's going to be a thicker, a more dense system with smaller pumps with the same power. And then many other things, all with the idea to comply with the business and growth and orientation of innovation goals. And this is translated into this. Good pictures, but these are the figures, what we expect by 2030 from today. In terms of our metrics, we go from 4 gigawatts, 45% thermal, and here by 2030 with these metrics. If you look at this, this is not different than the predictions of the energy transition by 2030 with 70% of renewable energy and 30 thermal, with all the considerations that I said, flexible, effective, less contaminant, with a lot of technology. This is the idea, 70% renewable, 30% thermal, 7 to 8 gigawatts plus storage. And for this, we have this portfolio Here, the management of development works with these figures to deploy these projects. We built this as we need them, and as Eduardo said, we are working on this and also Horizon, and also solar panels to be used. Today, we can use a solar plant, but it doesn't make sense. It's better this and this one, and if this has a better profile of generation in the night. This is what we are doing every day, every hour. And with all this portfolio gives us the 8 gigas by 2030. Now, in terms of contractual areas, this is what we have today. Roughly speaking, we have these figures for consumption and commitments. We say that we prefer to be exposed to our costs. I know these costs. I know how to manage this. If it is all the way around, I don't know how to do it. So we are conservative with these additional gigas, and we should be by 20 teras with more renewable, but also conservative. Significance of this part has been already contracted. And once again, with renewable energies and thermal, that is going to be to provide peak times, etc. But in terms of the margins, we cannot see a substantial difference in the margins of the business, because as we increase renewable energies in the whole system, the costs is reduced. So we can say there is no PPAs like the old ones, but the costs are different. So the whole system is becoming cheaper. Obviously, there are some contingencies, such as the war, increase in the cost of fuels, the uncoupling prices. So there are some differential of prices, but as an average, the costs of the system will go down. We will see that in the projections of marginal costs, etc. So in terms of sanitation of our portfolio, there will be no big difference in margins, but in the costs of contracting and the prices. And also the mix that we have as clients, because of political reasons, risks of value our offer, we want to go from 80-20 of regulated to non-regulated to 95-5. So here we will deploy our value proposal. And finally, in terms of contribution to the EBITDA, in terms of diversification of technology and geography, we have around 700 of EBITDA for this year, and Peru provides up to 20%, and this for 2030, it should be about 1,200 to 1,400. But here, participation internationally, based on this, in terms of opportunity, could be closer to 20%, with the contribution of new technologies that is about 5%. So the decade from 30 to 40, we should have a different cake that is more diversified in terms of technology and geography. This plant is moving forward. The contracts are being applied for the next year and 25. Portfolio of generation is moving. So we're doing our best, taking care of our standards, communities. Colbún has a history of how we have faced these big projects, and we have done it properly. And obviously, this is not going to be different. We have big projects, and with this approach, with the communities, with engineering and procurement, we have built projects within the lockdown and within budget. With these projects that are being delayed and becoming more expensive, but we have a good scenario in this area. And the financial area, obviously, here we have three pillars that are fundamental. First, our pack of growth, that is the BAU. We have the muscle to do it, as we had done it in history. We have a solid position that allows us to continue with this project, but there are new businesses. Because of their complexity, we have to find new ways of financing these partners, technologies, and other financing alternatives. And for the next year, with Miguel, we will talk with several of our shareholders in Brazil and the United States to explore these financing alternatives for the new businesses. Now, with the ratios, the key, we have to be big investments companies. So anything that we do in terms of financing, we have to leverage and to have an investment of great rating. And regarding the management of the risks, many of the risks commented here are manageable in terms of fuels, technology, commercial risks. We are permanently working with policies for mitigating the risks in terms of generation, fuels, etc. This is a policy that will continue, and it doesn't matter how we want to grow, but it is fundamental to be balanced. And also with the energy transition, we have to be responsible, and we have to have our own policy, our own roadmap in the commercial area, financial area, etc. This is something we have been working with the finance area. So, in a nutshell, as I said, if we have to say, for instance, the main pillars in the business BAU to remain with a good participation in the market, with a proper share in Chile and Peru, in terms of the financial strategy, the degree of investment, this is important for the risks, the growth in renewable energies. We will be growing significantly in new capabilities and also storage to have this whole business in the north, and also with new renewables by 2030, without carbon footprint will be reduced. In terms of the EBITDA, we are going to be about $1,200 million of EBITDA. We are working on that in the business of energy, water, and hydrogen. And finally, with a portfolio where we are developing all the technologies necessary to keep working with our customers, free customers. We have had many, from 10 to 300 free customers, and probably from 300 to 1,000 within the next few years. Probably we will have that figure by 2030. And for this, the tools and technology after sales is going to be fundamental. We are working on this, and by 2030, we could have 25% of our customers to be free customers. This is what I wanted to tell you. We are excited about this. We require your support for this agenda. And I believe we have the people, we have the passion and the commitment to do it. Thank you very much, and we are available to talk to you. Thanks for these presentations. You can measure your carbon footprints with the QR. And here we can measure our emissions, and for this event to be carbon neutral. Now remember, if you have some questions, please raise your hands to use the microphone. Thanks for the presentation. Two questions regarding the storage of energy and the financial assessment. How can you compare that with returns of opportunities of having a wind plant, and what is the returns of this project? What's the worst scenario with all the variables, and how can you put that into the equation of the financial assessment? Second question, regarding the M&A, you talk about the benefits of diversification, and in terms of profitability, how much is that regarding profitability or the return for the projects in Chile, and also the opportunity of diversification in other countries? Regarding storage, we have two tendencies. There are some players betting on arbitration for this storage. Our vision is that is for the spot market for this project, because the arbitration will depend on differential of prices and for how long it's going to be. That it's a spot market. As Juan Eduardo says, the asset for generation and storage is within the package, the offer that we have. When we have an asset for storage, it's within the generation portfolio of an asset of solar energy, and how we put all this together. And we commit with our customers to have just one cost. If we have arbitration, it's okay. But actually, we can see that it's part of a generation project. So profitability of the assets of storage, this is what we have for the whole project. That is the generation of power and storage to have a 24/7 offer for the customer. So that the ECOI curve, that is the cost of this asset, is having the same profitability of any other assets in the south or thermal. There's not a difference, but with the proper management of our technology, during the first few years, we are going to have a good additional profitability. For instance, one of our commercial policies and for the management of energy is that we have to get a better margin for spot. For instance, 5% that I'm going to sell my energy into the spot, at least 5% of the average of a spot in this area. And if the spot is $50, we could go and sell more. How? Displacing the injection in the areas where the energy is more expensive, managing and coordinating. And this is the same with the good management of the battery. You can get better points than your average. In 2023, we're going to have a management of the energy. Spot is 50%, 15% above the spot average. This is the management of every day, every single minute, managing the assets. With the profitability, yes, capacity of arbitration, obviously, that is going to give you an additional offer. And regarding the international market, every country has their own returns and risks. Talking about the geography, if we have less risks, we may have a better return. We are not going to have profitability that we have just because this is a new market. We need to have a return adjusted to the risk according to the country, plus this additional profitability that we can have with a good management of the short-term markets, and this provides a delta. It depends on the market, but in general, we are assessing the countries, and basically, we're going to have this return. So if there is another opportunity to have a better risks, obviously we will assess, but the base is return adjusted to the risk in each of the countries. I have a question to know how the company may help in terms of the ESG to solve problems such as those you have mentioned. For instance, what you explained, for instance, the garbage in Diego de Almagro. This is Mars with a lot of garbage. This is one thing. And also, how the company may have some actions to, for instance, in the communities where we operate, CEP in the 8th or 10th region, and other regions to help with the potable rural water, because the communities have the problem that they may have the money, get the resources, but the companies doing that fail, and they get the money and they leave. It happens actually. So you can say, okay, someone has to help them, but nobody does. I don't know if there's something we can do, because we should go beyond saying, beyond solving problems like this, because in the country there are some people who do not have sewage. You cannot believe, but that happens. And also, in terms of ESG, how we can include practices for contractors related with subcontracted companies working for the company, in terms of making sure, because when we see governance, we have to worry that people working in the company, contractors, subcontractors, etc., they have to make sure they have an income that is with dignity. I don't know if that is a contribution for this society, to see that our contractors pay to their subcontractors properly. Well, regarding the questions you asked, the first two ones, I would say one of the lines that we have boosted is this work with partners. We know that we are not the only ones with these problems. And what we see, for instance, in terms of potable water in the different territories, to work with partners, we have a project that is named with Fundación Huella Local. And what we do is to help the municipalities that they don't have the professionals or the knowledge to apply for these public funds that many times are wasted. These are wasted because they are not used. So here we have a win-win. We support them with professionals through this foundation, helping the communities to apply for projects, and also this implementation. We have done pretty good now. I don't remember exactly the figure, more than 54 projects in terms of public infrastructure, many of them with potable water. And in terms of residues, we know that, for instance, the challenges of solar panels, we have to work as an industry with this problem, and also with innovation. So there are working groups with universities, with the industry, and other stakeholders to solve that problem. And yes, we could achieve some community, a small problem with the pallets, for instance, and with the reels, the wood, that could be something that could be useful in the northern area. But these are small volumes, and this is the challenge in terms of innovation. In order to complement this, we realized that the amount of resources that are wasted is huge, in different areas, simply because we have a poor management. We have a poor management, poor projects. If we provide the expertise in order to have good projects from the municipalities, the rates of success is going high. because the communities and the municipalities know that way what they need. We work with the Quilaco, Antuco, and Santa Barbara communities, and we provide them skills from for APRs, paving of roads, improvements of whatever the community needs. But our money invested directly into the project is more ineffective. So it's better to use this with man hours in order to have more projects. So once again, how we manage this social investment, how we can have a better grid to maximize the use of the public funds for social development. In Paposo, for instance, close to Horizonte, I mean, the quality of life of these people, it's poor. And how we can improve that is with access to energy, transportation, housing. And we can do that working together with the municipalities. And here we have to trust each other. And here in the south, we have some examples. We have some projects of innovation. We have to try to find new way to generate electricity, to dispose of the waste. And with this, we create synergy. And we wish all the stakeholders are doing this. We have to go beyond and to have baselines that are better in terms of improving the quality of life of the communities, and also to have a good disposal of the residues. Now, regarding the suppliers, this is good. We have opportunities in our policies for hiring our contractors that goes to their subcontractors. We have several limitations. The first one is that we have the whole chain of payment properly, and also we have ESG policies added for managing the residues, good commitment, environment, etc. So finally, if we do a good ex-ante work, and we demand this from our contractors, then it's going to be easier. When you hire, the contractor has a certain price, and then you have to change because of this need. But in the buildings, the control rooms, properly certified, and you put that into the bidding, and that is going to be our standard. In Horizonte, we didn't have any problems with the payments of our contractors. Everyone is well paid. In other projects, we have been working all right, and we have to keep working on each of the projects. For the contractors that are about 480 or 500 that are working with us in our offices, facilities, housekeeping, transportation with Colbún, we promote these practices with them in order to have better wages, or for instance, gift during Christmas. The idea is to have everyone looking like a worker of Colbún. So we have done efforts on this area. I have several questions, but I would like to try to summarize. First, we have a mix of customers for 2030. Have you written this, or there are some conditions that may change this idea or objective? And how this converses with the different legislation in terms of risks? You have some time broadcasting this investment in other countries. This is work in progress, but you are convinced to have certain technologies to be used, with just one type of technology, a mix of portfolios, getting assets that are already hired to be developed. Can you share these ideas? And also, in Peru, what's next to be expanded? You have been working there, you have been working all right, but no progress. The law doesn't help on the renewable areas. And also the last one, there are a lot of areas that are strategic to optimize the assets here for international expansion, desalination, hydrogen. What are the priorities in the short term in some areas that you're managing and where we need these resources? I don't know if you have enough resources for all this program of ideas you have.
El mix de clientes. A ver, la verdad es que escrito en piedra, ni la vida está escrita en
It's
piedra.
not written on stone, you know, not even our life.
Por ahora,
By now,
insisto,
I insist,
interacción con el mundo libre
the interaction with the free world provides better results than with the regulated one for different reasons, not only political reasons, etc. But we are focused on the added value solutions. And in the public area, it's more difficult because it is regulated. So we're always monitoring the conditions in both worlds. And as we believe this is reasonable, we participated in the previous bidding. So that percentage is not accurate, but our national vision for the long term is that we shouldn't see many changes, so that maybe a couple of points could be, but actually all the tendency is that the market is going to be more liberal. The limit could be maybe 100 in the world markets. This is totally free. We can see the reform to distribution that has been discussed for 5 years. So I believe with this, we believe the free market should get stronger. But once again, we cannot discard this, but this is going to be just a movement of a couple of points. Regarding the international market, we have some boundaries, and we can share that with you. Regarding the size of the opportunity, we don't believe we can compete with against the big utilities. We are trying to find niche, small and medium companies. And in general, in many countries, we have family companies with small groups that are having some complex financial situations. And in general, these are opportunities with some assets, some gas, a pipeline 500 to 1,000 for renewable energies. That park of energies with 500 megas or something, plus 1,000 for pipeline is good for us. We have found many. There are many companies in many countries and in other countries that are growing. We don't want to go to Uruguay, for instance. It's difficult to grow there, so we try to find better countries. That is regarding this part. We have 30, 50 opportunities. Regarding Peru, you said Peru is a market where the legislation changed. The prices of gas closed last year. We have been working with some renewable projects, but in Peru, and it's similar to Chile. First, we started to get out of the regulation or the regulated go into the free market with Volcan. This is the biggest with supply for by 2026 and 7. That will obviously will need some assets under production. We can see the prices are honest. The hydrogeology is volatile. Dry years and wet years, so we can see the same phenomena volatility in terms of prices, renewable energies that are more competitive than gas. So we have to have a mix here. And we can see that in Peru, 60% of the assets change of ownership. So the market is being settled to see what the actors are going to be here. So we have projections of growth, 4,000 megas for Peru, and we are going to do a match with good assets, good contracts, and something that we will broadcast by late 2024. And what else? The last one. You know, this is business question. Step one, short term until 2025. The core pillars, the first two ones are key. As Juan Eduardo said, the assets are being dressed for the transition, more flexibility, less consumption of water, etc. So this is something we can see that with the taking advantage of the hydrology. Second, renewable growth. We already have a portfolio based on more renewable assets where we need more renewable megas for the next 2 or 3 years. So you will see announcements of projects online of new generation or storage, because these are commitments that we already have. By 2025, these are the pillars. Probably before, until 28, we shall have new expansions, growth in Peru, plus some other countries, and this is going to be our next focus. And by 2030, with the greenfield for ammonia and water, this should be for the 2030. So this is the sequence. 4, expansion, growth within the business as usual. By 2030, that is going to be different.
Hola, buenos días. Muchas gracias por la presentación. Yo tengo dos preguntas principales.
Two questions. First, regarding guidance that you mentioned regarding to the EBITDA, it's relevant the increase by 2030, considering the new capacity, mostly pre-contracts, but there's something that is not clear for me. There's one point that you mentioned where I wanted to highlight regarding that the margins will continue to be stable in time, considering that if the costs are increasing, we have this idea of what you mentioned and what we can see in the industry, that anyway, we have this increase in terms of prices. But how this is going to come true in terms of operations, where we have Colbún for each of the countries, and also considering the investments done, how much could it be, what we can do in terms of distribution for development, or focus on types of technologies, because this is relevant in terms of the growth that we have for the EBITDA, considering that at least in the industry, we can see that the marginal costs should be reduced in a way because of the high amount of renewable energies in the future. And also, something that you mentioned at the beginning is that maybe we have some other lines. There are some other areas where we can have higher points. We'll still have some problems there. So this is one. Can you show the information according to the country of operations and the types of businesses? And also, you mentioned that in the short term, we don't have problems regarding gas. One thing is that we can solve this in terms of operations, the fact that we can deviate some one ship in the Magellan area, but what impact this cause if this is long in time, or if we have the gas from Argentina, because anyway, it's relevant that this year you had good results because of the good hydrology. Could you clarify or to provide more information about this, please? Last year we have good results, even with a dry year. So in general terms, with a good year like this, the margin is in the contracts, and all the margin is in your property. When we have a dry year, the margins are high, and the contracts are not good because the margins are negative, but your margin is with the spot. What we talk about how you can get from the spot. If you can have an excess, it's good. So we have a natural hedge with regarding and now this year we have a wet year. Regarding the costs of the system, the projections of all the industry, and this is similar to all the countries, is that the costs of the supply system are using more renewable energies, reducing the consumption of fuels or other fuels. So we have a sort of a transient because we are at the mid of the transition with some hours of supply that are very expensive, and this should be coupled. So we're talking about the importance of a storage, synchronous condensers, flexibility of the grids, so that we can reduce this. And this is going to be something that will take a couple of years by 2030. And in our contracts, we divide periods between the long term and transient. So we have different approaches in the long term and short term to pick up all these adjustments of the system. But obviously, in the long term, with the matrix of high renewables, that is going to be 70–80% renewable. Obviously, the cost of supply will be lower. So that is the margin. The margin of the contract should not change much. What we have a problem now is that not all the company could manage this properly, or they took more risks. But in the long term, these contracts are designed to face these risks and to keep a reasonable margin based on the cost expected for those years. That applies in Chile, Peru, by 2030 with the renewable energies there, similar. And in fact, the thermal or other power plants, what we have seen, the projections, by the end of this decade, these are going to have less, and these are going to be related to complementary services. It's more difficult to be dispatched. And that is why we believe our projection by 2030, 20% of our production is based on thermal with a different role. That is why we're working to prepare this ourselves for this scenario. This regarding the prices. Now, regarding this EBITDA for 2030, simple. We're going to have 20 teras of production with a certain level of margins, and based on this, we expect by 2030 to have half of our energy to have some added value with the management of the energy. So here we will have an additional of EBITDA that is for the energy, and the rest of the EBITDA will be built by 29 or 30 for new businesses, water, green hydrogen, and this is the EBITDA that we will have. And the last question for the gas. Juan Eduardo said, we checked that the geopolitical business is changing, especially the gas in Argentina, where they had some problems during the winter time. Now we have a new gas pipeline, and therefore we have witnessed for the first time that even in winter we have an excess of gas. So for 1 year we could see with Argentina, as we don't have restrictions, that is something you had. This was a political thing, that they wanted to sell gas to Chile. That is not a restriction, and Argentina is exporting to Bolivia. And the gas is going to Argentina. And the way how to add value in Argentina is using Chile. And during this decade, the only way Argentina can add some value to their gas is by selling that to Chile. So this is important for the Argentinian to see we should have long-term contracts competing with the GNL and also renewable energies to guarantee generation of gas during this decade. We believe there are some positive areas, and also we have the backup of the Genera, regardless of the route, because we have discussed with all the producers in the world, we don't see any other risks with the contracts that we have today. Obviously, whether this is being used with ships in Panama, or they're going to solve that problem with their own logistics. You know, they move ships all around the world, not only in America. So this is not a specific risk, but I think we have an opportunity to capture this decade with Argentina as a complement for the transition with natural gas. In our case, we have the GL by 2030. No change in the conditions of the routes. We have just a few minutes. We still have some other online questions. Two questions from streaming. The first one, what Colbún thinks about the thermosolar concentration energy, that the ESP as a solution. Second, could you have a sort of division of the CAPEX by 2030? CSPs, that is a wonderful technology. I've been checking that. This could be towers or antennas. I've been in Spain, United States, and Chile, Cerro Dominador. We are assessing all the technologies, biotechnologies with salts, CSP. With the projections that we have and with the international projections, we cannot see a reduction in the LCOV of these solutions. Maybe there will be a change in reducing the costs, but the nature is complex, so there is not much of a gap in terms of improving these kinds of plants. It's a turbine, but actually the water, I boil it with the, with the sun instead of fuel. It is similar to a thermal business, and also the complexities of pointing the light to the reception. But once again, if there is a new technology to improve competitiveness in terms of technologies, we're going to look at that. But in reality, for several years, none of this technology has been more competitive than the solar plants with the storage with batteries. We can see that this could be better than eolic and battery. This is something by now. We cannot prove it, and we will see within the next few years. And the CAPEX, I'm sorry. These are figures. We're talking about 4,000 megas. with the mix of solar batteries, 4,500 million. Maybe the eolic is increasing from $1,300 per kilo, more than 1,800. So it should be going down between 4,000, maybe 5,000, depending on the storage in the long term. And then the other areas, by 2030, water, hydrogen will depend on the type of projects. So, for instance, projects of export of hydrogen into ammonia, for instance, between the generation plant and the plant of ammonia or fuel, import, export, etc. We're talking about projects with projects of 6,000 million at least. This is something we cannot do on our own. So how much is the capex will depend on the partners, the project, and this is not easy to advance. But in global terms, apart from this capacity, I would say it should be 2,000 additional millions of new projects. But it's premature to say what the capex is going to be with the new technologies by 2030. Thank you. In this way, we are going to close. Let's give them a round of applause. In this way, we're closing the Investors Day 2023. Thanks for your participation. We hope this allows you to have a better understanding of the agenda of the company, the main role of sustainability and innovation for us, and also to see what is our projections by 2030. The electricity area needs more information with the process and tendencies that have made this industry a more competitive area. Colbún believes in an energy transition that is responsible. As a national company, we have the challenge of this with responsibility towards the country and committed with our purpose. Because in Colbún we transform the energy into equilibria with the planet. In line with this purpose, we also aim to have the development of our communities. That is why, when we finish here, you will have a token of our appreciation made by Tania, and she is an entrepreneur participating with Colbún with the program Voces to promote the efforts of entrepreneurs of San Esteban, Los Andes y Camino Internacional. And also, as Tania, we support other entrepreneurs to boost their projects. Thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you.